Chapter 2237, Lord of the Sky gazing peak. Immediately, the surroundings became completely silent. This unbelievable sight had stunned everyone. What did they just witness? They saw a one-colored Soul Core Radiant Saint Master send a two-colored Soul Core Radiant Saint Master flying with a single slap as soon as they clashed. This was so unbelievable that they would have never believed it if they had not witnessed it firsthand. If a one-colored Soul Core Radiant Saint Master had somehow defeated a two-colored Soul Core Radiant Saint Master, they would not have been this shocked. It was because a two-colored Soul Core Radiant Saint Master who was supposed to possess an absolute advantage had actually been slapped by someone with weaker cultivation than him. This was just too absurd. Around the ring, Biyao remained stunned. She blankly stared at Jian Chen, who was enveloped by a layer of light, and she seemed like she no longer knew Jian Chen. The mouths of Wen Sheng and the others from the Snowfall Peak all hung agape. They were dumbstruck as they stared at Lian Yen, who had been sent flying with a single slap. With a hefty sound, Lian Yen was sent over 20 meters away. He hit the large ring heavily. Half of his face had been reduced to a bloody mess. Moreover, his teeth had all fallen out. Lian Yen clutched his face as he stood up. He stared at Jian Chen blankly. He was completely dumbfounded. But in the next moment, his eyes became bloodshot. Fury burned within them as he glared at Jian Chen in complete hatred. He roared out as he charged towards Jian Chen. At this moment, Lian Yen had basically lost his mind completely. He had been driven insane. He thought about how he had actually been slapped by Jian Chen before everyone despite being a two-colored Soul Core Radiant Saint Master. It had quite the impact on him. Jian Chen faced Lian Yan's crazy attacks with composure. He cast Radiant Arte after Radiant Arte. Although they were only at the level of a one-colored Soul Core, they became unpredictable and agile in his hands. His usage of Radiant Arts truly seemed to be perfect in the eyes of the spectating Radiant Saint Masters. It caused countless people to sigh in amazement. Naturally, Jian Chen had learnt these Radiant Arts from Han Xian. When Biyao, Zhuo Feng, and he met Han Xian for the first time, Han Xian had given them some books regarding Radiant Saint Force. Not only did the books include cultivation methods, but there were also some basic Radiant Arts. With Jian Chen's current level of cultivation and the strength of his soul, he grasped all the Radiant Arts with a single glance. As such, not only was it extremely easy for him to use them, but it was unpredictable as well. He dodged Lian Yan's attacks with agility through the use of Radiant Wings, finding another opportunity to slap Lian Yan's face. With another slap, Lian Yan was sent flying by Jian Chen once again. In the air, Lian Yan felt the stinging pain on his face. He was extremely furious. He had been slapped consecutively before everyone. This had almost made him explode in anger. Not only was it humiliating for him, but it would also become a permanent stain to his name. Changyang, remember this. I will make you regret. I will return what you did today by 1,000-fold, Lian Yan roared out with an unclear voice. However, all that he encountered was a blinding radiant sword. It shot over with lightning speed when Lian Yan had been incapacitated and stabbed into his waist. Afterwards, it emerged from the other side and continued onwards without slowing down, heading right into the distance. It crossed a part of the square before stabbing into a huge tree, nailing Lian Yan 100 meters in the air. Arg! Lian Yan could not help but cry out. His voice was extremely chilling, immediately alarming all the people on the square. When the observing Radiant Saint Masters saw Lian Yan's horrible shape, they all gasped. Their gazes towards Jian Chen changed drastically. Biyao had been left speechless. Her beautiful eyes had already widened as she experienced emotional turmoil. Lian Yan was a fierce person that even she could not defeat, yet at this moment, Jian Chen, who she believed to be far weaker than herself, actually ended up beating Lian Yan in a fashion where he could not fight back at all. This had a tremendous impact on her. To one side of the square, several black-clothed envoys stood emotionlessly on a platform that was several dozen meters high. They glanced at the entire square coldly. They were responsible for maintaining the peace there. Someone go and report what happened on ring number 3 to the Peak Lord, an envoy who seemed to be the leader said emotionlessly. Must we alarm the Peak Lord because of a battle between two weaker disciples? Yes. There is a great need to. Report to the Peak Lord immediately and also take the recording of ring number 3 with you for the Peak Lord to view. Understood. The envoy immediately flew towards the top of the sky-gazing peak. There was a palace completely carved out of white jade on the top of the sky-gazing peak. 3 men wore white robes that represented hallowed saint masters as they discussed with one another at a jade table. One of the men seemed to be in his 40s, having reached middle age. His face was filled with a sense of determination that could only be forged through going through thick and thin. However, his hair was snow-white and draped on his shoulder casually. This white-haired, middle-aged man was the Lord of the Sky-Gazing Peak. The 2 other men were younger. They only seemed to be in their 20s, and they both had striking appearances. Their faces were filled with confidence. Even when they faced the Lord of the Sky-Gazing Peak, one of the 99 main peaks of the Radiant Saint Hall, they remained natural and composed. At this moment, an envoy made his way in. He bowed towards the Lord politely before passing a crystal to him. He said, "Peak Lord, this is a recording of a battle that occurred in ring number 3. Caretaker Bai specifically sent me to bring it to you." Afterwards, the envoy gave a simple explanation of what had happened in the ring. A 1-colored soul core disciple defeated a 2-colored soul core disciple. Although that doesn't happen often on our sky-gazing peak, it's nothing particularly surprising. The Peak Lord smiled indifferently when he heard the envoy's simple report and did not pay too much heed to it. However, he still accepted the crystal with the recording of the fight. He viewed it casually. However, the Peak Lord gradually went from being uncaring to serious. In the end, he had even become stern. A mere 1-colored soul core disciple actually possesses such a level of control over Radiant Saint Force. This is simply astonishing. Who is this? The Lord of the Sky-Gazing Peak asked. Chapter 2238, 9-Star Geniuses, Peak Lord. He's one of the 3 newly accepted disciples of the Lord of the Soaring Clouds Peak. His name is Chang Yang, the envoy said politely. The Lord of the Soaring Clouds Peak? Isn't that Han Xian, who condensed a 7th-colored soul core recently? The Lord of the Sky-Gazing Peak asked. It is Protector Han Xian. The Peak Lord stood up. He stared in the direction of the Soaring Clouds Peak and murmured, "This Han Xian is quite lucky. He gained such an outstanding disciple from just his first group." When the 2 young men who sat with the Peak Lord heard such great praise from the Peak Lord, they could not help but grow curious. One of them stood up and asked indifferently, "Peak Lord, has another impressive 9-star genius appeared in our Radiant Saint Hall?" The young man was not very powerful. He only had a 4-colored soul core. According to the division of fighters, it was equivalent to deity. His strength was indeed nothing special in the Radiant Saint Hall. However, his status in the Radiant Saint Hall was extremely special. It was enough to allow him to stand on equal footing to the Lord of the Sky-Gazing Peak, one of the main 99 peaks of the Radiant Saint Hall. This was because he was one of the 5 9-star geniuses of the Radiant Saint Hall. His name was Gongjing Xian, and he was one of the people selected to compete for the position of chosen saint. I don't know what kind of starred genius he is, but the footage of his battle is recorded here. Have a look. The Peak Lord passed the crystal over. Gongjing Xian and the other young man both viewed the crystal. Very soon, they became stern after watching it all. This 1-colored soul core disciple's usage of Radiant Saint Force is indeed wondrous, said Gongjing Xian. That's right. Even I can only sigh and say that I am not as great as him in that aspect. It truly is difficult to believe that a 1-colored soul core Radiant Saint Master has reached such an unbelievable level in his control over Radiant Saint Force, the young man beside Gongjing Xian also praised. He was Xian Bing. He was also one of the 5 9-star geniuses of the Radiant Saint Hall, just like Gongjing Xian. Would you be interested in accompanying me to the square to see this disciple called Changyang? The Peak Lord asked Gongjing Xian and Xian Bing. I just happened to want to see him, said Gongjing Xian. I had the same thought as well, Xian Bing added. Afterwards, the Lord of the Sky-Gazing Peak hurried off to the square immediately with Gongjing Xian and Xian Na. As soon as they approached the square, they heard an energetic, loud voice ring out from afar. "Are there any other disciples of the Snowfall Peak who are willing to fight me?" The voice was filled with provocation and scorn. This person called Changyang really is a little arrogant, but he had the capacity to back up this arrogance. The Lord of the Sky-Gazing Peak made his way over steadily with a smile. "Greetings, Peak Lord." At the same time, the envoys in black robes stationed on the tall platform immediately flew over, bowing towards the Peak Lord of the Sky-Gazing Peak. "By long, you've done well to discover this little guy. I just wonder how many stars he has." The Peak Lord nodded before asking the leader of the envoys. The envoy referred to as By Long replied, "I've already investigated it. He's Changyang of the Soaring Clouds Peak and a one-star genius." "What? Only a one-star genius?" The Peak Lord frowned slightly and asked in disbelief. By Long nodded. The test indicated he was a one-star genius. The Peak Lord no longer said anything else. He looked at the figure who stood up straight in the ring in an awe-inspiring manner as he seemed to be in thought. "Are there no more people from the Snowfall Peak?" At this moment, Jian Chen called out once again. "Humph, Changyang, don't you get arrogant. Our Snowfall Peak just doesn't want to harass the weak." "Such an easy victory is not glorious," replied the fourth disciple of the Snowfall Peak with an ugly expression. "Talk once you defeat me. You should be the fourth disciple of the Snowfall Peak, Wu Bing, right? Wu Bin, you have a two-colored soul core, while I only have a one-colored soul core. I hereby challenge you. Are you bold enough to accept?" Jian Chen said loudly. His voice basically rang across the entire square. More and more people gathered around the ring now. The expression of the fourth disciple of the Snowfall Peaks became horrible. He stood outside the ring with gritted teeth, not daring to take a step forward. Although he had a two-colored soul core, he was nowhere near as powerful as Lian Yan. Even Lian Yan was not Jian Chen's opponent and had been viciously humiliated, so he would just be looking to embarrass himself if he went up. "It looks like you're not bold enough for a battle in the ring. But it does make sense. Even your third senior brother, Lian Yan, has been beaten to a pulp by me. Naturally, you're not my opponent," Jian Chen scoffed from within the ring. Wu Bin's face immediately paled from anger when he heard that. Jian Chen glanced at the second senior brother of the Snowfall Peak, Wen Sheng, who also stood there with a sunken face. He said, "Wen Sheng, I represent the Soaring Clouds Peak to challenge you, the second disciple of the Snowfall Peak. Do you accept?" "Good, good, good. Changyang, good on you, challenging me." Wen Sheng immediately paled in anger as his gaze became piercing. He had said that all through gritted teeth as killing intent surged within his heart. However, he also dared not step into the ring. He had clearly witnessed Changyang's strength. He did indeed possess a one-colored soul core, but he could even defeat two-colored soul core Radiant Saint Masters in battle. Without complete confidence in victory, he did not want to fight Jian Chen so easily. Even if they did fight, it would not happen here. After all, if he lost, he would no longer have the dignity to meet anyone else in the future. After all, he did not have a two-colored soul core. He was a Radiant Saint Master with a three-colored soul core and someone who had touched on the boundary of the laws of the Hallowed. "It's the Peak Lord. The Peak Lord has come. Greetings, Peak Lord. Greetings, Peak Lord." At this moment, the crowd surged as cries rang out everywhere. They all saw the white-haired Peak Lord of the Sky-Gazing Peak standing with Gongjing Xian, Xian Bin, and the black-robed envoys. "It seems like it's Gongjing Xian of the 5 9-star geniuses of our Radiant Saint Hall. Gongjing Xian has actually come as well. It's not just Gongjing Xian. Even Xian Bin of the 5 9-star geniuses has come as well. 2 of the 5 9-star geniuses have come. It's said that they're about to enter the competition to become the chosen saint. The chosen saint of this generation will be selected from the 5 of them." The arrival of the 2 9-star geniuses immediately caused quite the hubbub among the Radiant Saint Masters present. In the eyes of many, 9-star geniuses were like idols. They were supreme existences, and just a single glance of them would be an extremely great honor. Which one of you is Wenqing? Why don't you enter the ring and fight Changyang? At this moment, Gongjing Xian spoke out. He spoke very softly and indifferently, but it was filled with an irrefutable sense of firmness. It was as if he was ordering someone, like an imperial edict that could not be refused. Chapter 2239, Thousand-Leaf Lotus. When he heard Gongjing Xian's order-like tone, a cold light immediately flashed through Wencheng's eyes. However, it happened to be the time when the Radiant Saint Hall would be gaining a new chosen saint, and the chosen saint would be selected from the 5 9-star geniuses. As such, he dared not offend one at a time like this. As a result, even though Gongjing Xian's condescending attitude angered Wencheng, he dared not show any of it. Instead, he forced out a smile and clasped his fist. Since Senior Gongjing Xian has spoken, Wencheng will enter the ring and teach this ignorant Changyang a lesson. With that, Wencheng leapt into the ring reluctantly. Jian Chen's gaze was venomous. He stared at Wencheng with a forced smile. Wencheng, you're a Radiant Saint Master with a 3-colored soul core, and I heard from my junior sister that you've touched on the laws of the hallowed. Don't lose to me. Humph, you think I can lose to you? Wencheng snorted coldly. He dared not be careless against this person who had easily defeated Lian Yan. He took the initiative and formed seals with both hands. Radiant Saint Force surged from his body, condensing into a pillar of white light that shot towards Jian Chen. Jian Chen also became cautious. He could not expose his identity as a fighter in the Radiant Saint Hall, so he could only display a level of cultivation akin to a Radiant Saint Master with a 1-colored soul core. He could not afford any carelessness at all against Wencheng, who was 2 cultivation levels ahead of him. The radiant wings appeared on Jian Chen's back once again. As a blur, he dodged Wencheng's attack by a hair's breadth and approached the latter. You want to deal with me in the same way you dealt with Lian Yan? You're far too naive. I'll show you the power of the 3-colored soul core, Wencheng snorted coldly. Milky white light flickered around him and condensed into a huge, white shield that covered him completely. He had no need to fear Jian Chen at all as long as he stood behind the shield. Jian Chen dodged the constant attacks from Wencheng with the radiant wings. Several radiant swords shot out from him, striking Wencheng's shield. However, Jian Chen's radiant swords were only enough to cause the shield to shake a few times. They were unable to destroy it. Jian Chen's eyes narrowed as he thought, Wencheng really does have a 3-colored soul core after all. All he needs to do is defend, and I'll struggle to get through it. The power I possessed with a 1-colored soul core is indeed a little too weak. However, I can get through the shield with a single attack if I use the laws of the hallowed. But comprehending the laws of the hallowed with just a 1-colored soul core is a little too shocking. Although I have Senior Mo Tianyan's mask as a cover, and I don't have to worry about being exposed by the experts of the Radiant Saint Hall, standing out too much is not good either. As a result, I definitely can't use the laws of the hallowed. Radiant Rain. At this moment, Wencheng called out. A thick layer of light shone around him as white specks of light the size of rain condensed around him. They packed the space densely before shooting out in all directions sharply like rain, reaching every inch of the ring. No matter how fast Jian Chen was, he would not be able to dodge a barrage like that. However, he did not become flustered at all. 3 radiant swords revolved around him like a formation, dispersing the radiant rain that flew towards him. Every droplet of radiant rain possessed astonishing power. Jian Chen's radiant swords shattered very soon, but he could always use his superior control over radiant arts to condense new radiant swords as soon as possible. Suddenly, Jian Chen extended a finger, and the 3 radiant swords around him immediately formed a line before shooting through the cracks between the radiant rain and striking the white shield around Wencheng firmly as streaks of white light. Boom! With that, Wencheng's shield shook heavily, and it rapidly dimmed. The energy within the shield was drained away quickly. Wencheng's face changed. Immediately, he weakened his control over the radiant rain and did his best to stabilize his shield. However, at this moment, Jian Chen's eyes shone brightly and sharply. In the next moment, a portion of the radiant rain that shot towards him actually came to a forceful halt. They no longer attacked Jian Shen. Instead, they shot back as white light and headed towards Wencheng. Jian Shen had forcefully taken control over that portion of radiant rain. Unbelievable. This is truly unbelievable. A Radiant Saint Master with a one-colored soul core has actually taken over control of a Radiant Arte from a three-colored soul core Radiant Saint Master. This is just unbelievable. The Lord of Sky Gazing Peak could not help but sigh in amazement. Chang Yang's control over Radiant Saint Force is even more terrifying than I imagined it to be, Xian Bin said emotionlessly. Gongzheng Xian nodded in agreement, indeed. However, fortunately, he only has a one-colored soul core, and he's not a hallowed Saint Master. Otherwise, we would have another worthy opponent in the competition for Chosen Saint. Only 9-star geniuses have the right to take part. He's only a 1-star genius, said Xian Bin. The Peak Lord of the Sky Gazing Peak shook his head at that. He's definitely not as simple as a 1-star genius. Yeah. Although I don't know whether he's a 9-star genius, he's definitely not just a 1-star genius. Unfortunately for him, he has missed the appropriate time, and he's not fated to compete for the position of Chosen Saint, said Gongzheng Xian. Then he looked at the Peak Lord of Sky Gazing Peak and said, Peak Lord, who do you think will emerge victorious? It's difficult to say. I still can't see the conclusion right now, the Peak Lord said sternly. Gongzheng Xian smiled mysteriously. If that's the case, why don't we have bet with the Peak Lord? Let's bet who will be victorious in the end. The Peak Lord smiled bitterly. It looks like you're still fixated on my 1,000-leaf lotus. Whatever, if I keep the 1,000-leaf lotus, the other 3 9-star geniuses will probably come looking for it as well. I might as well get rid of it sooner rather than later then, as that will save me from the trouble to come. Gongzheng Xian, who do you think will win out of the two of them? I'm betting on Wensheng with his 3-colored soul core. I don't believe this person called Changyang can defeat Wensheng with his 1-colored soul core. Gongzheng Xian looked at Wensheng and continued, if I win the bet, the Peak Lord's 1,000-leaf lotus will belong to me. If I lose, I'll give a droplet of soul fluid to the Peak Lord. I want the 1,000-leaf lotus as well. Count me in on the bet. I'll bet that it'll end up as a stalemate. If I win the bet, the 1,000-leaf lotus will belong to me. Gongzheng Xian, Peak Lord, you don't have any objections, right? The other 9-star genius, Xian Bin, added. Gongzheng Xian and he had come for the Peak Lord's 1,000-leaf lotus, so they naturally would not be willing to miss this opportunity. It looks like I can only bet that Chang Yang will be victorious, the Peak Lord smiled helplessly. This was all because the 2 9-star geniuses did not have high hopes towards Chang Yang. They completely understood the difference between a 3-colored soul core and a 2-colored soul core. Chang Yang could defeat Radiant Saint Masters with 2-colored soul cores, but he definitely could not defeat Radiant Saint Masters with 3-colored soul cores. Being able to achieve a stalemate would already be extremely impressive. Moreover, Wensheng had already touched on the basics of the laws of the hallowed. Even though he was not a hallowed Saint Master, he would be quite a lot more powerful than regular Radiant Saint Masters with 3-colored soul cores. Chapter 2240, Only Defeat is Accepted? Boom! At this moment, a loud sound rang out from the ring. The shield of energy around Wensheng had finally shattered under the radiant rain that Jian Shen had directed back at him. A powerful ripple of energy rammed into Wensheng, forcing him to retreat. You actually, disbelief filled Wensheng's face. He pointed at Jian Shen. Currently, he was speechless. His control over the radiant rain he had cast had been forcefully taken away by Chang Yang, who only had a 1-colored soul core. Then, the radiant rain was used against him. Did anything still make sense? However, Jian Shen did not tarry at all after destroying Wensheng's shield. He approached Wensheng with a flash and directly swung the radiant sword in his hand towards Wensheng. Wensheng's expression changed slightly. Jian Shen's reactions were just too fast, and his attacks were just too swift. It was already too late for him to cast a radiant arte to stop the radiant sword that approached him. Immediately, he condensed a pair of radiant wings to retreat. His battle experience was clearly not as plentiful as Jian Chen's. With just this tiny mistake, he had completely lost his initial advantage and was forced into a position where he had to respond to everything that Jian Chen threw at him. Jian Chen took advantage of this situation and pursued Wen Qing closely. He stabbed out with his radiant sword mercilessly, and it reached Wen Cheng's chest in the blink of an eye. Wen Cheng's expression changed drastically. Although he had some experience in battle, he had never been in such a nervous fight. Under Jian Chen's barrage of attack, he immediately became flustered. During such a tight situation, he tripped and managed to avoid the radiant sword by a hair's breadth. However, even with that being the case, a long slash appeared on his white robes, and the robes were now covered in dust as well. Climbing up to his feet, Wen Cheng's face had paled in anger. He was utterly furious. With that trip, he had basically lost all his dignity. He would no longer have the face to see anyone in the Radiant Saint Hall. "Changyang, I swear I will make you regret what you have done," Wen Qing called out. He also condensed a radiant sword and slashed it towards Jian Chen as quickly as he could. The speed of the radiant sword had indeed reached Wen Cheng's limit. He was confident that even a few regular Radiant Saint Masters with three-colored soul cores would not be able to avoid his attack. However, it was as slow as a snail in Jian Chen's eyes. However, Jian Chen did not choose to dodge this time. Instead, he purposefully acted like he had been caught off guard and used his body to forcefully take on the strike. And just as the radiant sword was about to slash him, he secretly controlled the chaotic force within him and purposefully pierced his body by condensing the chaotic force into a blade. As a result, Wen Cheng's radiant sword landed squarely on the wound Jian Chen's chaotic force created, piercing him. As for Jian Chen, he ignored his wounds. Enveloped by a layer of radiant saint force, he also stabbed Wen Cheng with his radiant sword. Arg! Wen Cheng had never felt such pain before. Immediately, he cried out in agony as he pulled away from Jian Chen in a hurry. Jian Chen sneered. With a thought, a radiant sword condensed behind Wen Cheng. As a result, as he retreated, he ran into the tip of the radiant sword. Immediately, he grunted painfully again. Jian Chen's gaze was cold. He took a step forward and raised his radiant sword over his head. It shone with blinding light. Just when he was about to swing it, a voice rang out in his head. "Changyang, I'm Gongjing Xian. Only defeat is accepted from you in this battle." Gongjing Xian said condescendingly as he directly ordered Jian Chen, giving him no room to refute. Of course, he was not afraid that irrelevant people would hear his secret message to Jian Chen. After saying that, Gongjing Xian stood there with his arms crossed. He was full of confidence as if Changyang definitely would not disobey his orders. After all, he was a 9-star genius of the Radiant Saint Hall. He was indeed very influential over regular disciples with a status like that. "Changyang, I am Xian Bin. It's already extremely outstanding that you can force a Radiant Saint Master with a 3-colored soul core into such horrible shape. It's best if you just end the battle as a stalemate." The other 9-star genius, Xian Bin, had also sent a secret message to Jian Chen. However, he did not speak as forcefully as Gongjing Xian. Jian Chen sneered inside when he heard the two messages. With how unimaginably great his senses had become, it was impossible for him to not overhear the gamble between the two 9-star geniuses and the Lord of the Sky-Gazing Peak. If it was someone else, they naturally would not dare to offend a 9-star genius that could become the next chosen saint. However, it happened to be Jian Chen and not someone else. Swish! Jian Chen completely ignored Gongjing Xian and Xian Bin. With a flash of white light, he swung his radiant sword without any hesitation at all, cutting off Wen Cheng's arm with a resplendent glow. Wen Cheng immediately squealed miserably like a pig to the slaughter. Excruciating pain made his body tremble uncontrollably. He had almost fainted. The observing Radiant Saint Masters all burst out into an uproar when they saw this. Many of them were stunned by Jian Chen's bloody methods. After all, these Radiant Saint Masters were not like fighters. Fighters were people who were well versed in battle, and some of them had basically navigated their way through corpses. On the other hand, Radiant Saint Masters were not accustomed to blood. Gongjing Xian's face became rather ugly as he stood beside the Lord of the Sky gazing peak. His face sank as he looked at Jian Shen with a flickering cold light in his eyes. He grumbled inside, this Chang Yan really is ignorant. He's a mere disciple with a one-colored soul core, yet he dares to defy me. Humph. Xian Bin also frowned slightly. His gaze towards Jian Shen contained displeasure. This Chang Yang really does please me more and more, the white-haired peak lord chuckled happily. His gaze towards Jian Shen was filled with undisguised admiration. Chang Yang, why don't you hurry up and stop? You must lose this battle, Gongjing Xian said to Jian Shen once again. This time, he spoke sharply. However, Jian Shen turned a deaf ear to his message. He arrived before Wen Sheng in a single step and grabbed him by the collar. He looked at the sheet-white Wen Sheng whose face was twisted in pain and said coldly, Wen Sheng, I never had any particularly great grievances with you, but you should have never, ever held ill intentions towards my junior sister. This is what happens when you hold lecherous intent towards my junior sister. With that, Jian Shen slapped Wen Sheng's face. Chapter 2241, Getting in the Way Immediately, a red handprint appeared on Wen Sheng's face. However, Jian Shen did not think that this was enough. He ignored Wen Sheng's vicious gaze as he slapped his other cheek. What happened next stunned everyone around the ring. All they saw was that Jian Shen wanted to properly humiliate Wen Sheng. Left and right, he slapped him over a dozen times, causing Wen Sheng's cheeks to become bright red and swell up. In the end, Jian Shen coated his hand in milky white light. He used some force this time, sending Wen Sheng flying out of the ring. With that, the battle between a one-colored soul core and a three-colored soul core Radiant Saint Master came to an end. However, the outcome surprised everyone, making them fall silent. Chang Yang, very impressive. I will remember you. A while later, Gongjing Xian broke the silence. He said to Jian Shen emotionlessly before turning around and leaving. Heavens! Is there something wrong with my eyes? It can't be real. It definitely can't be real. A Radiant Saint Master with a three-colored soul core has actually been defeated by a Radiant Saint Master with a one-colored soul core. This is just unbelievable. I refuse to believe that this is real. Chang Yang has basically done the impossible. Only now did a messy series of cries ring out on the square. All the Radiant Saint Masters called out, either lost in excitement or shock. All of them looked at the bloody Jian Shen who stood in the center of the ring as they revealed looks of admiration. Junior brother has won. Junior brother has won. Junior brother has defeated Wen Sheng. Biyao became completely stunned. She struggled to accept this all, struggled to believe this all is real. Jian Shen stood in the ring as he clutched the wound on his chest. Even though his blood had oozed out, he had already concealed the great energy within the chaotic blood, so it was no different from ordinary blood. He calmly glanced past the Radiant Saint Masters who called out constantly in the surroundings. Chang Yang. At this moment, the Lord of the Sky gazing peak spoke out. He spoke normally, but his voice rang across the entire square and drowned out the various cries. Immediately, the noisy square fell silent. Chang Yang greets the Peak Lord. Jian Shen clasped his fist towards the Peak Lord of the Sky gazing peak. Even though his robes were no longer clean anymore, dyed red from blood, it did not affect his bearing at all. Instead, it added some special flair to his appearance. Chang Yang, you are the most powerful Radiant Saint Master with a one-colored soul core I have ever seen. Your unprecedented act of defeating a Radiant Saint Master with a three-colored soul core has left me completely stunned, smiled the Peak Lord. Afterwards, with a flip of his hand, he took out a thumb-sized, violet lotus from his space ring. He said to Jian Shen, this 1,000-leaf lotus can bring great benefits to hallowed Saint Masters below the five-colored soul core. It can allow your strength to increase drastically. I will be bestowing it upon you as a reward to you. I hope you can comprehend the laws of the hallowed soon and become a hallowed Saint Master. As he said that, the 1,000-leaf lotus in the Peak Lord's hand was surrounded by radiant saint force and slowly drifted towards Jianchen. Thank you, Peak Lord. Jianchen did not make a big deal out of it. After thanking the Peak Lord with clasped hands, he accepted the 1,000-leaf lotus under the gazes of all the radiant saint masters present. Afterwards, he exchanged some pleasantries with the Peak Lord of the Sky-Gazing Peak and left. Changyang, may I ask if you're willing to exchange your 1,000-leaf lotus with me? Of course, I definitely won't disappoint you. At this moment, the 9-star genius Xian Bin arrived before Jianchen and smiled warmly. Jianchen studied the 1,000-leaf lotus in his hands. Although the 1,000-leaf lotus was not of particularly high grade, it was very beneficial to radiant saint masters, so he turned down Xian Bin's offer. The 1,000-leaf lotus won't have particularly great effects on Junior Changyang. If Junior Changyang is willing to exchange with me, I can offer you a heavenly resource that's worth 10 times more. Junior Changyang, please consider it. Come find me once you've made up your mind. Xian Bin left with that. By long, save the complete video of Changyang fighting Wen Cheng. The Peak Lord stood in his jade-white palace on the top of the sky-gazing peak as he said to a black-robed envoy. We've saved it. We completely save every single fight that happens in all the rings, Bai Long said politely. All right. Take the video of the battle to the Sacred Hall. Show the elders. Changyang is an extremely outstanding genius. Our Radiant Saint Hall should nurture him with our efforts, but that is up to the elders, said the Peak Lord. Yes, Peak Lord. Jianchen had already left the ring now. Wherever he passed, the surrounding Radiant Saint Masters would step aside and open up a path for him willingly. Junior sister, let's go back. Jianchen directly arrived before Biyao and said to her. Yep, at this moment, Biyao was still in a daze. She glanced at Wen Cheng, who had fainted on the ground, before following Jianchen blankly. At the same time, the envoy, Bai Long, took the recording of the battle and left the sky-gazing peak. He flew towards the scared hall standing above the clouds. Halt! The security of the sacred hall was extremely strict. As soon as Bai Long approached it, he was stopped by 2 middle-aged men in violet robes. Bai Long knew that they were guards of the sacred hall. Both their status and power were greater than the envoys. Immediately, he bowed slightly and said, I am an envoy of the sky-gazing peak. I've come under the orders of the Peak Lord to deliver this to the esteemed elders. Pass it to us, and you can leave, said one of the violet-robed guards. Bai Long hesitated slightly, but he still passed the crystal to one of the guards in the end. After that, he left the sacred hall. The 2 violet-robed guards took the crystal that held the recording and made their way into the sacred hall. The 2 of you, stop. At this moment, someone called out gently. Gongjing Xian walked over steadily with his arms behind his back. The 2 guards both clasped their fists in greeting when they saw Gongjing Xian. Not only was Gongjing Xian a 9-star genius within the Radiant Saint Hall, but he was also the disciple of an elder. His status was so great that the status of the guards was nowhere close to his. What did the envoy before give you? Gongjing Xian asked arrogantly with his head held high. It's a crystal for us to pass on to the elders, replied a guard. A cold light flickered through Gongjing Xian's eyes. He said, my teacher is one of the elders, and I just happened to be on my way to see him. Give me the crystal. I'll take it over for you. The 2 guards looked at each other. They dared not disobey Gongjing Xian, who was extremely likely to become the chosen saint. As such, they could only pass the crystal to him obediently. Gongjing Xian left with the crystal before stopping in an empty region. He took out the crystal that contained the recording of the battle and sneered. Clenching his hand, he directly crushed the crystal to dust. Chapter 2242, Upheaval on the Cloud Plain. Just as Jianchen returned to the soaring cloud's peak victoriously with Biyao, the distant cloud plain had already been reduced to a state of chaotic battle. The Tian Alliance led by the Tian Empire and the Resistance Alliance led by the Heavens Link Peak were already engaged in a full-blown war. Even though the Resistance Alliance also possessed around half of the Peak clans on the Cloud Plain, they were forced into a constant retreat in the war against the Tian Alliance. They did not lose to the Tian Alliance in terms of Peak experts, but the Tian Alliance possessed the Heavenless Demon Exalt, which directly pulled them apart. Coupled with the entry of the 4 Eternal Empires into the Tian Alliance, not only did the Tian Alliance possess an absolute advantage in terms of Peak strength, but the majority of their troops were extremely powerful as well. Led by the 4 Eternal Empires, many Primordial Realm experts and countless soldiers clashed with people of similar strength from the Resistance Alliance. The Cloud Plain smoked as battles were waged across the entire place. Corpses were piled on top of corpses as rivers of blood appeared. It was like a living hell. The Lord of the Heavens Link Peak had clashed with the Heavenless Demon Exalt several times in outer space already. He was heavily injured now and had retreated out of the central region with the people of the Resistance Alliance, guarding the northern region. The central region had completely fallen under the control of the Tian Empire now. Moreover, the Empyrean demon cult's branch on the Cloud Plain had been destroyed by the Heavenless Demon Exalt. Aside from Huayan, the other 2 vice leaders had died in battle. Huayan had chosen to betray the Empyrean demon cult and yield to the Heavenless Demon Exalt. The divine kingdom of Pingtian in the southern region had not been affected by the war yet due to being rather remote. They remained the same as before. However, all the cultivators in the divine kingdom of Pingtian lived in fear. They were afraid of the day that the battlefield would reach them. Compared to them, the Tian Yuan clan in the Donglin province was far more composed. It was as if they did not worry about the battle at all. Of course, their composure completely originated from something Ming Dong had said, "Don't worry, everyone. As long as I'm here, they won't be able to touch a single hair of the Tian Yuan clan even if the Heavenless Demon Exalt personally comes." Although what Ming Dong had said sounded completely absurd, everyone in the Tian Yuan clan believed it firmly. This was all because a Peak Chaotic Prime followed Ming Dong wherever he went. And it was exactly because of that that the Tian Yuan clan remained peaceful when war sprang up on the Cloud Plain. Those who were cultivating continued to cultivate, while those who were doing other things did their things. Everything continued in good order. At this moment, a group of several dozen people covered in blood flew towards the Donglin province. They approached the Tian Yuan clan with rapid speed. Ming Dong, who was strolling through the gardens with Yun Xiaoyan, seemed to sense the arrival of these people. A cold light immediately flickered through his eyes. "They really aren't afraid of death to provoke our Tian Yuan clan," Ming Dong said coldly with killing intent. However, at this moment, the first elder of the Tian Yuan clan, Xiu, immediately took to the air. She looked at the several dozen people who approached the clan rapidly, and joy immediately flooded her eyes. "Mother!" Xiu called out and immediately went up to receive them. "You are..." The graceful woman at the very front was also joyful. She arrived before Xiu with just a single step and extended her arms, embracing Xiu tightly. This woman happened to be the Empress of the Xi Empire. However, she was currently covered with blood. Even many of the people behind her were soaked in blood and wounded. "Mother, what has happened to you? What has happened in the palace? And where's father? Is father well?" Shiyu's expression changed drastically when she saw the blood on the Empress. Her heart became filled with unease. At this moment, Ming Dong had also taken to the skies with Yun Xiaoyan, watching from afar. It's not the time to talk about that. Immediately leave with all the people of the Tian Yuan clan. The sooner, the better. There's not much time left, the Empress said frantically. She pulled Xiu along with her as she flew into the Tian Yuan clan. There was no time for her to explain at all. "Mother, what has happened?" Xiu was uneasy as she asked in complete concern. "Don't ask about it for now. Listen to your mother. Immediately gather the important people." The Empress said sternly before looking at a short, old man behind her. "Subject Tian, please prepare the teleportation formation immediately." The short old man was also an infinite prime. He nodded in response to the Empress and immediately began to cast down a teleportation formation. "It's very safe here. You don't need to go anywhere. At this moment, Ming Dong arrived with Yun Xiaoyan and said calmly. The Empress glanced at Ming Dong. Even though she did not recognize him, she could tell that he was only a god king. Coupled with how urgent the situation was, she was in no mood to waste words on Ming Dong. She only ordered Subject Tian to cast down the teleportation formation faster. Haha, you still want to leave? Empress, do you still think you can leave? At this moment, a shout rang out from far away. A group of people rapidly approached the area from the distance. They moved extremely quickly, entering the territory of the provincial city in the blink of an eye and surrounding the Empress group. The Empress' expression immediately became extremely ugly. She looked at Shiyu beside her and determination flooded her eyes. She thought, I never thought they would arrive so soon. Even if I have to die here, I must send Yuer away safely. I can't let anything happen to her. The leading old man in the new group of people glanced at the Empress and Shiyu. He sneered, Empress, why aren't you running anymore? But today, not only will you fail to escape, but even your daughter, Princess Shiyu, will face death. The Tian Yuan clan, a puny little clan, will be destroyed because of you as well. The old man would have been better off if he did not mention the Tian Yuan clan. Ming Dong's face immediately sank when he heard these words, and killing intent filled his eyes. He sneered, really? I'd like to see who's bold enough to touch the Tian Yuan clan today. The old man looked at Ming Dong in great surprise. At that moment, he had even begun to doubt his ears. A mere god king was actually speaking to him like that. Not only was the old man stunned, but even the Empress looked at Ming Dong in surprise. Recovering, the old man sniggered. He looked at Ming Dong coldly and said, I can wipe out the mere Tian Yuan clan with a single gesture. I'll show you how exactly I destroy this little clan. With that, the old man pressed his hand towards the Tian Yuan clan. Immediately, the powerful pressure of a ninth heavenly layer infinite prime surged out from his body. A huge hand appeared in the air, engulfing the Tian Yuan clan with frightening ripples of energy. Chapter 2243, The Chaos of the Shi Empire. The old man was extremely powerful. He was a peak infinite prime. With his strength, he could claim to be invincible in an ancient empire like the divine kingdom of Pingtian. The huge hand he condensed its surging energy. Let alone destroying the Tian Yuan clan, but it could even flatten the entire provincial city. The Empress secretly sighed with this. She knew that the fate of the Tian Yuan clan had been set in stone now. It was impossible for them to escape this fate. Even if she intervened, she would not be able to change any of it. However, the old man's actions had completely angered Ming Dong. Ming Dong glared at the old man in a shocking manner as killing intent surged from him without any disguise. Ming Dong pointed at the old man and suddenly cried out, "Kill him!" There was an undisguised rage in his voice. The white-robed, scholarly, middle-aged man who had always accompanied Ming Dong nodded gently when he heard that. He glanced past the old man indifferently and waved his hand leisurely. Immediately, primordial realm laws that were enough to cause the old man to tremble suddenly descended. The middle-aged man's hand turned into a streak of dazzling golden light, piercing through the air and arriving before the old man in a split second. Under the old man's shocked gaze, it struck his body mercilessly. There were no deafening booms. In the instance the old man was struck, he disintegrated silently. Whether it was his flesh or blood, it had all been reduced to nothingness under everyone's gazes. Nothing remained. Even his soul had dispersed. The ninth heavenly layer infinite prime had been slain by the middle-aged man before he could even cry out. Everyone present saw this shocking scene and immediately became astounded. At that moment, including the Empress, everyone looked at the middle-aged man who stood quietly behind Ming Dong. Shock filled their eyes. "Stand forward, those who want to destroy my brother's Tian Yuan clan." Ming Dong did not even look at the old man who had disintegrated. Instead, he glared at the people who had arrived after the Empress and called out. Killing intent surged from him. The expressions of the people who had pursued the Empress all changed from that. They could not help but stagger a few steps backwards as surprise and fear filled their eyes. At that moment, not a single one of them dared to underestimate Ming Dong. The deterrence from the middle-aged man had silenced them all. Even though there were infinite primes among them, they dared not utter a single word. The Donglin province does not welcome you. I'll give you 10 seconds to get out of here. If any of them still remain after 10 seconds, leave none of them alive, Uncle Ming, Ming Dong growled. Understood. The middle-aged man standing behind him replied indifferently. He glanced past the people nonchalantly. However, his calm gaze made all of them shiver. Let's go. In just a few seconds, all of them had vanished. 10 seconds were not needed at all. The Empress group was originally ready to fight to the death, so they became dumbfounded by the sudden change in the situation. Who are they? The Empress asked Shiyu secretly and carefully as she was still taken aback. Undisguised shock filled her eyes. Shiyu already knew that the middle-aged man Ming Dong referred to as Uncle Ming was extremely powerful, so she had already been prepared for this. As a result, she seemed rather composed right now. Immediately, she pulled the Empress to Ming Dong and introduced, "Mother, this is Ming Dong, a brother of Patriarch Jian Qin." Shiyu and Ming Dong were already extremely familiar with each other, so even though Ming Dong had displayed impressive power, she did not act overly cautious before him. However, the Empress struggled to remain as composed as Shiyu. She clasped her fist towards Ming Dong cautiously and thanked, "So it's the young hero Ming Dong. Thank you for your assistance. The two of us cannot express our gratitude." The Empress could tell with a single glance that the terrifyingly powerful middle-aged man seemed to follow Ming Dong, so she dared not hesitate at all when she greeted Ming Dong. She struggled to imagine just how powerful Ming Dong's background was to be able to have such a power chaotic prime as a bodyguard and have the chaotic prime followed all of his orders. The person who should be grateful is me. I must thank the Emperor and Empress for taking care of the Tian Yuan clan for all these years, or my brother's clan would struggle to survive until now. Ming Dong smiled at the Empress modestly. He did not put on any airs when he faced Shiyu's mother. Afterwards, the Empress group, Shiyu, and Ming Dong all returned to the Tian Yuan clan. They gathered in the discussion hall there. "Mother, tell me what happened to the Imperial Palace. And why hasn't my father come?" Shiyu asked frantically before everyone was even seated. The Empress became gloomy from that. She sighed in low spirits. "Something has happened to the Shi Empire. Ever since your father went into the Forbidden Grounds, he never emerged again. Instead, the Ancestral Emperor who had always been cultivating there and never paid any attention to the Empire's matters suddenly emerged. He took over control of the Empire again, leading the Shi Empire to stand with the Tian Empire. And your father caused much bloodshed in the Shi Empire to take revenge for you in the past. He slew the important figures of many large clans and organizations, so they've begun to resent our imperial family since long ago. If our imperial family maintained our strength, they would never dare to make trouble, but since the Ancestral Emperor took over control of the Empire and mobilized large portions of the Empire's forces to war, the Shi Empire basically emptied out internally. These people who resented our imperial family since long ago finally took advantage of the situation to wipe out the imperial family. With the heaven-cracking sect leading them, all the clans and organizations who have grievances with our imperial family banded together and engaged in a bloody battle against us. As the Ancestor Emperor is not in the northern region, our imperial family lacks chaotic primes, so we were forced into a constant retreat against the upheaval of the heaven-cracking sect. Mother, is father in danger then? Otherwise, why would he remain in the Forbidden Grounds and not emerge? She did not care about the chaos in the Shi Empire. She was worried about her father the most. I don't know. I really don't know what has happened with Xian. If you say he's in danger, it doesn't make sense because all the people in the Forbidden Grounds are the seniors of our Shi clan. Moreover, your grandfather is in there as well. How can they turn on their own family? The Empress shook her head as worry filled her face. She refused to believe all of this. No. Mother, I have to go back. Father really might be in danger. I have to go save to him, Xiyu said firmly. She had managed to reunite with her parents after so much difficulty, so she could not allow anything to happen to her father now. There's nothing you can do even if you return. The Imperial Palace is a mess right now. It has been claimed under the lead of the ancestor of the Heaven-Cracking Sect. The ancestor of the Heaven-Cracking Sect is a chaotic prime, and who knows what has happened to your father and grandfathers. Unless the Ancestral Emperor returns, no one from our imperial family is the Heaven-Cracking Sect ancestor's opponent. Moreover, the forbidden grounds of the Imperial Palace are protected by a powerful formation. You can't enter it anyway. Chapter 2244, Ming Dong's Assistance. Are we supposed to just watch father fall into danger while we do nothing? Xiyu was helpless. Her father did not emerge after entering the forbidden grounds. Even when the Shi Empire faced destruction, he still did not appear as the current emperor. This made her become more and more certain that her father was in danger, so she became extremely uneasy and flustered. Suddenly, Xiyu seemed to think of something. She looked at Ming Dong and pleaded hopefully, Ming Dong, only you can help me now. Please, I beg you to save my father. I beg you. Xiyu placed all her hopes on Ming Dong because she knew that it was impossible to get another expert who could hold off the ancestor of the Heaven-Cracking Sect apart from with Ming Dong's help. As Xiyu pleaded towards Ming Dong, the graceful empress' eyes lit up as well. Suddenly, she looked at Ming Dong, and the flames of hope ignited in the depths of her eyes. Ming Dong sighed inside when he saw the hopeful pleadings from Xiyu. He nodded silently and said sternly, "Don't worry. Your imperial family has assisted the Tianyuan clan many times in the past. Now that you're facing trouble, I will naturally assist with all that I have. Thank you, young hero. Thank you. If the opportunity arises, our imperial family will definitely repay your kindness." The empress was overjoyed and shed tears of gratitude. Ming Dong smiled indifferently when he heard that. He said proudly, "The reason why I'm helping your imperial family is not for you to return the favor. Even if you do want to return the favor, your imperial family will probably never get the chance. The only thing you should feel glad about is that you helped the Tianyuan clan in the past. The Tianyuan clan is both my brother's clan as well as my clan. You have helped the Tianyuan clan in the past, so I will help you. Enough, let's not talk about this anymore. It's best if we hurry. Let's set off right now." Ming Dong looked at the middle-aged man behind him and said, "Uncle Ming, please cast a formation to protect the Tianyuan clan." "No wait, not just the Tianyuan clan. Protect the entire provincial city. This my brother's territory after all. I can't just return from the northern region and find that my brother's territory bears no resemblance to how it was before." The middle-aged man nodded. Immediately, he got to work, and very soon, a powerful formation was erected around the entire provincial city. Afterwards, the Empress group remained in the Tianyuan clan. To prevent any traitors among them from harming the Tianyuan clan, Uncle Ming divided up a region for them to remain in temporarily under Ming Dong's request. Afterwards, Ming Dong left with Yun Xiaoyan, Xiyu, and the Empress, leaving the southern region under Uncle Ming's lead. They were extremely fast with Uncle Ming's cultivation as a chaotic prime. In just a few short seconds, they crossed the great distance between the southern and northern region, arriving above the imperial palace of the Shi Empire. The once majestic imperial palace had been ruined long ago. The protective formations had shattered while corpses were littered across the ground. Rivers of blood flowed, filling the air with the metallic smell of blood. Xiyu became gloomy and sorrowful when she saw the almost ruined imperial palace. The imperial palace in the past was so grand. It possessed a sense of dignity that could not be defied, yet it had been completely reduced to ruins now. "Let's go to the forbidden grounds," the Empress remained composed. She led the way, hurrying directly towards the forbidden grounds. In a mountain range several tens of million kilometers away from the imperial palace, a white-robed, ruddy old man sat at the highest point. He was the ancestor of the Heaven-Cracking Sect, and he resided at the location of his Heaven-Cracking Sect. The Heaven-Cracking Sect was one of the peak sects within the Shi Empire. They possessed a chaotic prime, which allowed them to basically stand on the same level as the imperial family. Their status was extremely great. The ancestor's eyes snapped open. His gaze was piercing as if he could see through space. He looked in the direction of the imperial palace. It's the Empress' presence. She has actually returned to the imperial palace. Have the people I sent failed to kill her? The ancestor frowned. As a chaotic prime, the senses of his soul were so powerful that he could envelop an entire region, so he sensed the Empress as soon as she appeared in the imperial palace. Afterwards, the ancestor stood up. With a gentle breeze, he vanished silently. The Empress led the way, leading Ming Dong and Uncle Ming directly to the forbidden grounds in the imperial palace. At this moment, a terrifying pressure descended from the air. The ancestor of the Heaven-Cracking clan silently appeared like he had teleported, right in front of the Empress. The Heaven-Cracking sect was extremely distant from the imperial palace, but such a distance was nothing to a chaotic prime who could basically cross worlds with each step. Empress, I never thought you'd actually return. The northern region no longer belongs to your Shi Empire. The ancestor stood there with his arms behind his back. A tremendous presence surged out from his body as he glanced past Ming Dong and the others sharply. The ancestor was not foolish. Naturally, he knew that the Empress understood the fact that she would be discovered as soon as she appeared in the Shi Empire. Yet, she was still bold enough to return. Evidently, the Empress had something she could rely on. As a result, he purposefully let out his presence to test what the Empress was relying on that did not fear him. But very soon, the ancestor's eyes narrowed. He discovered that as soon as his presence approached Shiyu, Ming Dong, and Yun Xiaoyan, it seemed to encounter an invisible wall, preventing it from drawing any closer. Empress, you just have to look for trouble, don't you? Do you really think you're the same Empress who could rally everyone from a single command? Another voice rang out. An azure-robed, middle-aged man appeared there, standing with the ancestor of the Heaven-Cracking sect. This middle-aged man was the ancestor of the Sword Sect of Four Poles, which was also a peak organization within the Shi Empire. The ancestor of the Sword Sect of Four Poles did not act recklessly either. Clearly, he thought of the same thing as the ancestor of the Heaven-Cracking sect. The Empress stared at the two ancestors emotionlessly and said nothing. However, Ming Dong stood forward. He said coldly, I don't care what grievances you have with the Shi Empire, but you better get out of the way right now, or we'll show you what will happen. Who are you? Which clan do you come from? You need to understand that if you stand with the Empress, you oppose the side of the heavens-linked peak, the ancestor of the Heaven-Cracking sect said to Ming Dong, but his gaze was fixated on Uncle Ming who stood behind Ming Dong. He was stern. Do you come from the Tian Empire's side? The ancestor of the Sword Sect of Four Poles called out with a sunken face. Cut the bullshit. Are you moving or not? Ming Dong frowned and became slightly impatient. Humph, what impudence. I'd like to see whether you have the capability of making us move, the ancestor of the Sword Sect of Four Poles snorted coldly. Immediately, sword chi surged from him, and four swords suddenly appeared. With devastating power, they shot towards the Empress group. Chapter 2245, The Ancestral Emperor of the Shi Empire space cracked, and the dense energy of the world in the surroundings retreated in a trembling manner where the swords pointed. This was the strength of a chaotic prime. A casual strike from such a being would possess devastating power, enough to easily crack the earth and shatter mountains. The ancestor of the Heaven-Cracking sect did not take part. Instead, the light in his eyes flickered with uncertainty as he stared at Uncle Ming before Ming Dong. He knew that the ancestor of the Sword Sect of Four Poles was only using this attack to test the middle-aged man's limits and gain an indication of his strength. The probing happened to suit his intentions because he could guess that the middle-aged man was a chaotic prime. However, he did not know just what heavenly layer he was on. I am of the second heavenly layer, and Gong Sun Dao is the same as me. If this person is of the third heavenly layer, we'll be able to hold him off if we work together. However, if he's beyond that, and at the fourth heavenly layer, then, we probably won't be his opponent even if we work together, thought the heaven-cracking ancestor. Uncle Ming's face did not change at all as he stared at the 4 approaching swords. He raised his hand indifferently and extended his index finger. With that gesture, laws powerful enough to make the 2 ancestors pale descended. They condensed into a streak of golden light and struck the 4 swords in a single instance. Boom! The 4 swords produced a gentle thrum after the golden light struck them before all falling towards the ground. The golden light from Uncle Ming's finger continued onwards. With the power of laws, it shot towards Gong Sun Dao like a hot knife through butter. Under his shocked gaze, it pierced through Gong Sun Dao's chest. It left behind a bowl-sized hole in Gong Sun Dao's chest. So powerful. This person is at the 7th heavenly layer at the very least. Gong Sun Dao was extremely shocked. He glanced at Uncle Ming in astoundment, and with a wave of his hand, he collected the 4 swords. Without lingering for even a split second longer, he fled as quickly as he could. The eyes of the ancestor of the heaven-cracking sect also narrowed. After witnessing Uncle Ming's strength, he made the same decision as the ancestor of the sword sect of 4 poles. He left as quickly as he could. The Empress was greatly shocked when she saw the 2 chaotic primes scramble for their lives. She knew that the middle-aged man Ming Dong referred to as Uncle Ming was extremely powerful, a peak expert who had reached chaotic prime, but she had never thought that this Uncle Ming would be so powerful, where even the peak expert Gong Sun Dao was dealt with in a single strike. Just which heavenly layer has this Uncle Ming reached? The Empress could not help but wonder. Although the Empress was also a primordial realm expert, she was only a late infinite prime. She was unable to tell what level of cultivation Uncle Ming had reached. At this moment, Uncle Ming suddenly looked at an empty region and said indifferently, "Since you're here, why don't you show yourself?" The Empress' eyes narrowed from that, and she immediately looked over to where Uncle Ming was gazing. An old man silently appeared in the empty space. He wore dragon robes and gave off the bearing of a ruler. He stared at Uncle Ming closely with his profound eyes. He was stern. Ancestral Emperor. However, the Empress' expression suddenly changed when she saw the old man, and she could not help but cry out. The old man was the ancestral emperor of the greatest seniority and strength, Yanxue. Yanxue did not even glance at the Empress. His profound eyes remained fixed on Uncle Ming, 9th heavenly layer chaotic prime. Even across the entire cloud plane, there are only a handful of peak experts like that, and I just happen to have seen them all. You aren't among them. When he reached there, Yanxue's gaze suddenly became piercing. He called out, "Who are you? Where do you come from? Why are you interfering with the internal affairs of my Shi Empire?" Uncle Ming ignored Yanxue. He looked at Ming Dong and said, "This person's cultivation is the same as mine. He's also a 9th heavenly layer chaotic prime." Ming Dong nodded to express that he understood. "Greetings to the ancestral emperor." The Empress was unable to remain composed when she saw Yanxue. She pulled Shiyu over and bowed towards Yanxue cautiously. Yanxue finally looked at the Empress. He was emotionless and cold. "You should be the current Empress. Did you bring these people?" "Ancestral Emperor, my husband, the Emperor, has vanished without any reason, and all contact has been lost. I am worried about the Emperor's safety, which was why I asked young hero Ming Dong to come search for him," the Empress said politely. Yanxue's expression did not change at all. He said coldly, "Ziyun is fine. Take these people and leave." But, the Empress hesitated. "No buts. Immediately leave the Shi Empire with your people," Yanxue ordered coldly. The Empress became gloomy when she heard that. She was filled with bitterness. She was unable to defy the ancestral emperor with his order-like tone. As a matter of fact, she could not even think of resisting from the bottom of her heart. This was because Yanxue was everything to the Shi Empire. He was the reason why their Shi Empire could exist like how they were right now. Although he had stepped down many years ago and never interfered with the matters of the empire, he still held supreme authority within the imperial family. A single word from him was enough to dismiss the current emperor. However, Shiyu, who had not grown up in the Shi Empire, held no respect for the ancestral emperor. She gritted her teeth and said stubbornly, "If we don't find my father, we're not leaving. There's no need to say anything more." At this moment, Uncle Ming, who had remained behind Ming Dong, stepped forward. He stood with his arms behind his back before everyone. He stared at Yanxue calmly and said, "He has already fallen under the influence of a demonic seed and has been reduced to a demonic puppet controlled by someone. He's no longer the ancestral emperor you once know." "What?" The empress paled in surprise. She was extremely shocked. "If that's the case, there's no point in saying anything more. Uncle Ming, pave a path to the forbidden grounds," Ming Dong said coldly. Chapter 2246, The Power of a Divine General. "All right," Uncle Ming replied slowly. He took a step out and made his way towards the forbidden grounds of the Shi Empire leisurely. "Do you really want to interfere with the internal affairs of our Shi Empire?" With a flash, Yanxue blocked Uncle Ming's path. His face was extremely sunken while his glare was extremely sharp. A black, demonic aura seemed to flash through his eyes. He said coldly, "This is opposing the Tian Empire, the Heavenless Demon Exalt. You must consider the consequences carefully." Although the demonic seed controlled Yanxue, reducing him to a demonic puppet, he had not become mindless. He still possessed the intelligence of an ordinary person. "This is the imperial palace of the Shi Empire. I don't want to fight you and destroy this place. Move." "You're not my opponent," Uncle Ming said indifferently but also with great confidence. From how he acted, he did not seem to take Yanxue seriously at all, even though they were both 9th heavenly layer chaotic primes. The Empress said nothing more. After learning from Uncle Ming that Yanxue had already been reduced to a demonic puppet, she truly understood the severity of the matter. At the same time, she became even more worried about Shi Ziyan. However, when she faced this crucial figure of the Shi Empire, the ancestral emperor, she felt deep dread. She felt powerlessness from the bottom of her heart. She dared not defy him at all, so she could only place all her hopes on Uncle Ming. Seeing how determined Uncle Ming was, Yanxue could not help but snort coldly, "How arrogant." With that, Yanxue's eyes immediately darkened, becoming shrouded by a dark aura. Powerful energy erupted from him like a tidal wave as he hurled a fist towards Uncle Ming with the power of laws. Uncle Ming remained composed. An umbrella-like treasure appeared in his left hand, and he tossed it behind him gently. Immediately, the treasure shone brightly. It stood above Ming Dong and the others, erecting a colorful barrier around them. Uncle Ming, on the other hand, took a step forward. He pulsed with energy and also threw out a punch with the power of laws. The punch was astonishing. Wherever it passed, space was reduced to darkness. The surroundings seemed to be wailing out miserably. A strike from a 9th heavenly layer chaotic prime was simply too shocking and terrifying. Before he had even clashed with Yanxue, the terrifying might from when he struck out was already enough to destroy all of the surroundings. Boom! Finally, with a deafening rumble, Uncle Ming and Yanxue's punches collided. Immediately, terrifying ripples of energy turned into a devastating storm, ripping through space and cracking the earth. Under this storm, the ruined imperial palace was immediately flattened. It was no longer anything like its previous self. Only the 3 tall towers in the forbidden grounds of the imperial palace remained standing, completely undamaged. The formation around the forbidden ground had been personally cast down by Yanxue. It was very powerful, so it could emerge unscathed from this storm. Uncle Ming stood completely still. He did not stagger from where he stood at all. An invisible energy permeated his surroundings, blocking all of the incoming energy, preventing it from reaching the people behind him. On the other hand, Yanxue retreated uncontrollably. His gray hair ruffled about in the wave of energy, and his right sleeve had been ripped. He seemed to be in quite a horrible state. A gleam of vicious light flickered through Yanxue's dark pupils. He roared out and formed a seal with both hands. Immediately, the tremendous might of the world filled the surroundings. He used a god-tier battle skill. Promptly, the sky above the Shi Empire became abnormally bright. A huge spear, completely condensed from laws, hovered there with blinding light. The surrounding space constantly shattered as an extremely powerful presence of destruction permeated the region. Swish! In the next moment, the spear turned into a bolt of lightning and shattered through space, shooting towards Uncle Ming with unbelievable speed. Uncle Ming raised his head to look at the incoming spear. The light in his eyes flickered as he did not try to dodge at all. He threw out another powerful punch. Immediately, the tremendous might of the world appeared again. Uncle Ming had also used a god-tier battle skill. Blinding, golden light covered his fist, dyeing the sky into a golden world. With an ear-splitting boom, the two great battle skills collided with devastating power. Shi Lianshue's spear shattered from Uncle Ming's punch, reduced to a violent energy storm. On the other hand, the power in Uncle Ming's fist persisted. The remaining might landed on Shi Lianshue. Spurt. A bloody mist immediately sprayed out from Shi Lianshue's mouth. His face quickly became extremely pale as he was blown far away. He was heavily injured. Afterwards, he glanced at Uncle Ming, who stood within the storm of energy unscathed before immediately vanishing. He left. He had gained a deep understanding of the middle-aged man's strength from the two clashes. He understood that even if he used everything he had, he still would not be the middle-aged man's opponent. Hence, he chose to leave decisively. As Shi Lianshue fled in defeat, the ancestor of the heaven-splitting sect who stood several tens of million kilometers away became extremely shocked. He stared in the direction of the imperial palace as he struggled to remain composed. So powerful. Even the ancestral emperor of the Shi Empire, Shi Lianshue, is not his opponent. The ancestor of the heaven-splitting sect could not help but cry out. He became extremely solemn. Shi Lianshue has returned from the central region. No one knows if he will target our heaven-cracking sect. With his cultivation as a 9th heavenly layer chaotic prime, I'm definitely not his opponent even when he's injured. I can't stay in the heaven-cracking sect any longer. I have to go to the God's Fallen clan immediately. The alliance led by the Heavens Link Peak has gathered in the God's Fallen clan. I can only leave the remaining people of the Shi Empire for them to clean up, the ancestor said through gritted teeth. He hated the imperial family greatly. In the past, the current emperor, Shi Ziyun, had led a group of experts to surround the heaven-cracking sect to avenge his daughter, dealing a heavy blow to the pride of the sect. In the end, the Shi emperor personally executed one of the heaven-cracking sect's prestigious great elders right before the ancestor. The ancestor had always borne this grudge. However, the imperial family was just too powerful, so he never dared to act recklessly. Only when Shi Lianshue led the empire to join the Tian Empire's side did he finally get the opportunity for revenge. No matter what happens, the imperial family must all die. The ancestor secretly made up his mind. Chapter 2247. The Shi Emperor breaks free. The protective formation here is quite powerful. Even regular chaotic primes will struggle to get through it. Back up, Uncle Ming said to everyone. After they all backed up, he directly punched the formation around the forbidden grounds. Immediately, the formation erupted with blinding light. Turbulent energy surged out from underground and the three towers, and all of it gathered in the formation. Since it was enduring such a powerful attack, the formation began to absorb all the energy there to push its defenses to the limit. But in the end, the formation was still unable to hold itself against Uncle Ming's punch. It shattered after reaching its limit. With the formation destroyed, the three towers were exposed. The power of Uncle Ming's punch continued onwards after destroying the formation, landing on the three towers at the same time with earth-shaking power. Bang! With that sound, the three tower that had stood there for who knows how many years all turned to dust with a slight tremor, disintegrating in the breeze. This exposed three figures. Currently, the three figures sat together with their eyes closed. A black chain shackled them. The black chain was completely refined from pure energy. Not only did it restrain their movements, but it also sealed up all of their cultivation. The three of them were the current emperor, Shi Ziyun, and the other two ancestral emperors, Shi Haoshuan and Shi Haoming. Ziyun. Father. The expressions of the empress and Shi Yu immediately changed when they saw the restrained Shi Ziyun. They both cried out and rushed over regardless of the consequences. But at this moment, the black shackles around the three of them rapidly dimmed. After the formation and the three towers were destroyed, the black chains seemed to lose their reserve of energy. In just a few seconds, they completely vanished. With the chains gone, the eyes of all three snapped open. Immediately, a sharp light flickered through their eyes. The three of them recovered their cultivation in a single instance. All of their presences surged towards the sky, completely unleashed. Quickly conceal your presence. Don't harm Yuer. The Empress became relieved when the three recovered. She promptly stepped before Shi Yu to protect her while admonishing them. The three people were surprised when they heard that. They concealed their presences, and in a single instance, they saw everything around them. Their faces immediately changed. What has happened here? Why has our imperial palace become like this? Where is the ancestral emperor? Where is he? We have things to ask him, Shi Haoming and Shi Haoshuan both called out. Clearly, the three of them were completely unaware of the world around them after Shi Lianxue had trapped them. As soon as they broke free, they were surprised when they saw the surrounding landscape. Afterwards, the Empress narrated exactly what had happened to the three of them in great detail. Only after that did Shi Ziyun, Shi Haoshuan, and Shi Haoming finally understand the overwhelming change that the cloud plane had gone through while they were trapped. The ancestral emperor has actually been reduced to a demonic puppet. Why? Why would this happen? No wonder the ancestral emperor suddenly turned against us. Turns out he's no longer the ancestral emperor we once knew. The three of them all became filled with heavy sorrow when they heard that Shi Lianxue had been reduced to a demonic puppet. Let's put the ancestral emperor's matter aside from now. At this moment, the Shi emperor's father, Shi Haoshuan, said sternly, "It's a disaster to all the organizations that exist on the cloud plane with what has happened so far. It's very difficult to say whether our Shi Empire can survive this disaster. We need to properly consider how we handle this. The current cloud plane has already divided into two sides, one with the Tian Empire and one with the Heavens-linked peak. Unless we give up on everything we've built up, we need to join a side. Remaining neutral is not an option," said Shi Haoming. "Anyway, our Shi Empire can never yield to the Tian Empire. I'd suggest we join the Heavens-linked peak against the Tian Empire. We definitely can't let the Tian Empire conquer the entire cloud plane, or it would be directly against the interests of our Shi Empire," said Shi Ziyun. Shi Haoming and Shi Haoshuan were in no hurry to express their thoughts. Instead, they both looked at Ming Dong. The three of them had already learnt that it was exactly because of Ming Dong that they had managed to break free this time. "My friend, I was wondering if you," Shi Haoshuan wanted to ask about Ming Dong's stance on the situation, but before he could finish speaking, Ming Dong waved his hand. "Don't ask me. Whatever happens on the cloud plane has nothing to do with me. How you plan on dealing with it is up to you. Everything is fine as long as it doesn't affect our Tian Yuan clan." Unable to persuade Ming Dong to join a side, Shi Haoshuan became disappointed. Then he turned to Shi Ziyun and Shi Haoming and said, "If that's the case, let's stand with the Heavens-linked peak and stop the Tian Empire's path to domination together. Shi Ziyun, you're the current emperor, so we'll leave it up to you to explain to the Heavens-linked peak. Although the Heavens-linked peak is the weaker side right now, they won't be defeated that easily. Moreover, although the Sword Sect of Four Poles and the Heaven-cracking sect has slain many people of our imperial family, let's focus on the bigger picture at such a sensitive time. In the northern region of the Cloud Plain, the God's Fallen clan was a clan that stood at the apex of the plain, as they had a grand prime. However, the alliance led by the Heavens-linked peak and formed from a few peak clans had all gathered in the God's Fallen clan currently. They used the northern region as a line of defense to prevent the Tian Empire from total domination. The Lord of Heavens-linked peak, the ancestor of the God's Fallen clan, Luo Man Tian, the ancestor of the Tong family, Tong Wuming, the ancestor of the Fire God clan, Lian Wuji, the ancestor of the Cosmic Sect, Zhou Zhidao, the ancestor of the Daoist Sect of Emergence, He Dao, and the ancestor of the Heaven-Quaking Sect, Gu Li, had all gathered within a majestic divine hall within the God's Fallen clan. They were all figures that could make the entire cloud plane shake at a whim. Some of the people among them were injured. Their presences were much weaker, clearly having clashed with the Tian Empire before. In terms of peak power, our numbers matched the Tian Empire, but the Tian Empire has the Heavenless Demon Exalt, which makes us slightly weaker than the Tian Empire. As for the majority of the forces, the Tian Empire has controlled the 4 eternal empires, so in terms of both strength and numbers, they're at least twice as great as us. We're weaker than the Tian Empire in terms of both peak power and the majority of the forces, so the situation is not optimistic at all, Luo Mantian said grimly. If this continues, we probably won't be able to last for very long. Once the Tian Empire decides to ignore the losses and deal with us regardless of the consequences, we will have even less time, Tong Wuming gravely added. Chapter 2248, Enshrouding Demonic Aura. If the Tian Empire really wages a war to the death without any regard for the consequences, we will be defeated in the end, but they'll definitely have to pay an unbelievable price as well. Even if they can achieve victory, they will suffer heavy losses, Zhou Zhidao said grimly. That's right. The Tian Empire can't afford the price of a war to the death. What we can do right now is cover the northern region in formations and make it impenetrable. Let's make it our toughest fortress against the Tian Empire. If we choose to have the northern region as the last line of defense, we should completely eliminate the Shi Empire of the northern region. Since the Shi Empire stands with the Tian Empire of the central region, there is indeed no need for their existence to continue in the northern region. The ancestors of the peak organizations all spoke out. As soon as they mentioned the Shi Empire, they were all extremely cold. Peak Lord, may I ask when the Great Elder of the Empyrean demon cult will be taking action? At this moment, Lian Wuji looked towards the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak who had remained silent the entire time. Lord of the Heavens Link Peak, you guaranteed that the Heavenless Demon Exalt's fate would be set in stone when he killed the Grand Elder of the Empyrean demon cult and that he would die to the hands of the Great Elder behind the Empyrean demon cult. However, so many days have passed already, so why hasn't the Great Elder shown himself at all? First, the Empyrean demon cult had the Heavenless Demon Exalt personally kill their prestigious Great Elder and the war demon of their 5 generals, and then they had the Heavenless Demon Exalt destroy their branch on the Cloud Plain, where even 2 of the 3 vice leaders have died. The last one betrayed the Empyrean demon cult and yielded to the Heavenless Demon Exalt. Logically speaking, the Great Elder should have appeared already after these great matters. Does the Great Elder of the Empyrean demon cult fear the Heavenless Demon Exalt as well, making him unwilling to confront the Heavenless Demon Exalt? The ancestors gathered there all voiced their concerns. Currently, many of them began to doubt the Great Elder of the Empyrean demon cult. Some people had even become certain that the Great Elder had no confidence in defeating the Heavenless Demon Exalt who had reached the 4th heavenly layer as a Grand Prime. After all the people present, including the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak, were relying on the Great Elder to deal with the Heavenless Demon Exalt. The Lord of the Heavens Link Peak shook his head gently in response to everyone's doubts. I don't know exactly why the Great Elder still hasn't acted, but we cannot doubt his strength at all. His might far exceeds all of your imaginations. Peak Lord, why are you so certain that the Great Elder really possesses such terrifying strength? Have you personally witnessed him fight? He Dao questioned. Everyone present had only heard rumors regarding the Great Elder of the Empyrean demon cult. They knew that the Great Elder had slain the Lord of Planet Tian Ming, and he had managed to fend off a Hall Elder of the God clan without suffering defeat. Such strength was indeed enough to make the various peak clans of the Cloud Plain experience fear. This was because all the peak experts on the Cloud Plain were early Grand Primes before the Heavenless Demon Exalt had broken through. However, the Great Elder of the Empyrean demon cult remained an extremely mysterious person in their eyes. None of them had seen him personally, much less witnessed how it was like when he fought. That's right, I have indeed witnessed the Great Elder fight, nodded the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak. He could not help but think of what he saw back then, and he showed deep dread that rarely ever appeared on his face. all the ancestors present began to pay close attention. They all looked at the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak. Back then, when I passed by the God clan on the Godnigma Plain, I just happened to witness the fight between the Empyrean demon cult and the experts of the God clan. Everyone in the Saints' world knows that the Great Elder clashed with a Hall Elder of the God clan, but there was never a conclusive victory, and the matter was left unsettled. But in reality, very few people know that while there was indeed only a single Hall Elder who fought the Great Elder of the Empyrean demon cult, 2 of the 3 Great Elders of the God clan had secretly interfered with the battle. In distant outer space, they engaged in a battle of souls with the Great Elder of the Empyrean demon cult. The Great Elder was able to fight 3 people all by himself and not suffer defeat. Everyone immediately fell silent after they heard the Peak Lord's words. In the God clan, basically all the Hall Elders were early Grand Primes, while the Great Elders were mid or even late Grand Primes. Despite that being the case, the Great Elder of the Empyrean demon cult was actually able to achieve a stalemate against a Hall Elder and 2 Great Elders of the God clan. This strength had deeply stunned them all. Since the Great Elder is so powerful, why hasn't he appeared yet? Luo Mantian took in a deep breath and said in confusion. The Lord of the Heavens Link Peak sighed gently. Just when he wanted to speak, his eyes suddenly narrowed, and he looked at the sky. He became extremely grim, and he murmured, he's here. At the same time, all the peak experts gathered there all raised their heads and stared at the sky in shock as if they had sensed something. The blazing sun in the sky had vanished. A huge, endless demonic cloud silently appeared. It enshrouded the sky and blotted out the sun, throwing the entire northern region into darkness. The ancestral emperor of the Shi Empire, Shi Yanxue, stood politely within a majestic hall within the imperial palace of the Tian Empire. The heavenless demon Exalt sat high up on a throne like a king before Shi Yanxue as black mist enveloped him. An extremely powerful presence would leak out from his body from time to time, causing the space around him to distort with much instability. Shi Yanxue was reporting everything that happened in the Shi Empire to the heavenless demon Exalt, sparing no detail. After listening to it all, the black mist around the heavenless demon Exalt immediately churned. Heavy killing intent radiated from him, and just when he was about to say something, he suddenly shuddered. In the next moment, he vanished from the throne, and he reappeared in the air above the imperial palace. He looked at the sky. The scorching sun had already vanished in the sky. Terrifying demonic clouds had appeared silently, enshrouding the entire sky, throwing the entire central region into instant darkness. At this moment, if someone happened to be in outer space, they would discover that it was not just the central and northern regions that had become enveloped by the demonic cloud. Even the eastern, western, and southern regions had their skies blotted out. The demonic cloud was truly terrifying. It was vast and boundless, engulfing all 5 regions of the cloud plain. Chapter 2249. The might of a palm strike. 2 old men appeared silently beside the heavenless demon Exalt in the air above the majestic imperial palace of the Tian Empire. The 3 of them were the foundation of the Tian Empire, the pillars of support as well as the only reason why the Tian Empire could stand as an everlasting empire. However, the 2 old men were quite a lot weaker than the heavenless demon Exalt. They were 1st and 2nd heavenly layer Grand Primes. What astonishing demonic aura! Who is this person? Is he the Great Elder of the Empyrean demon cult? The 2 old men both looked at the sky in shock. They were extremely grave. Even though they possessed terrifying cultivations that could be considered as nearing perfection on the cloud plane, they still felt pressure before the demonic aura. The Great Elder of the Empyrean demon cult? The heavenless demon Exalt murmured. Then he sniggered. He has finally appeared. I've already waited for him for quite some time. Today, I would like to see whether the Great Elder who killed the Lord of Planet Tian Ming and dared to fight a Hall Elder of the God Clan is as powerful as he is rumored to be. I hope he doesn't disappoint me. The 2 other Grand Primes of the Tian Empire both stopped worrying when they heard that. One of them said sternly, Heavenless, it'll be completely up to you to fend off the Great Elder of the Empyrean demon cult. The heavenless demon Exalt nodded. At the same time, a terrifying presence surged from him. Demonic aura also filled his surroundings. He sneered, "I'll go test out this great elder of the Empyrean demon cult. Stay vigilant and guard against any sneak attacks from the heavens-linked peak during this time." With that, the heavenless demon Exalt shot off into the sky with surging demonic aura and a soaring presence. He flew towards the vast cloud that had engulfed the entire cloud plane. At that moment, the heavenless demon Exalt's strength as a fourth heavenly layer Grand Prime was truly revealed. The energy that condensed around him caused space to collapse. His presence was so powerful that it caused the earth below to constantly sink. The Tian Empire had already activated their defensive formations. A barrier rose up, engulfing all the territory of the Tian Empire. There was a second and third formation within this formation. The second formation engulfed the huge imperial capital of the Tian Empire that stretched for 1,000,000 kilometers, while the third formation enveloped the imperial palace. The three formations were one more powerful than the last. Every single one of them had been personally cast down by the Grand Primes of the Tian Empire, so their defensive powers were extremely shocking. The heavenless demon Exalt will be clashing with the great elder of the Empyrean demon cult. All the experts gathered outside the God's Fallen clan on the northern region stared at the pitch-black sky. They were all fixated on the direction of the central region. They were all supreme experts of the cloud plane. Even with the tremendous distance between the two planes, they could still envelop the imperial palace of the Tian Empire easily with the powerful senses of their souls. At the same time, Ming Dong hovered in the air under Uncle Ming's protection as he stared in the direction of the central region. Beside Ming Dong, the Empress and the Ancestral Emperors stood with rather pale faces. The three of them stared at the enshrouding demonic cloud as their hearts shivered. Suddenly, the tremendous cloud in the sky began to churn violently. A huge hand completely condensed from demonic aura suddenly reached out from the cloud, pressing down with terrifying might. The hand was truly humongous. It was 1,000,000 kilometers long, making it seem like a miniature continent. It enveloped the entire imperial capital of the Tian Empire. With the heavenless demon Exalt in the lead, he launched an astonishing strike that possessed the might of a fourth heavenly layer Grand Prime collided loudly with the hand. Immediately, space collapsed, and the sky cracked. The entire world seemed like it had shattered. The clash was terrifying and shocking, causing the entire central region to shake violently. A huge earthquake occurred, causing waves to toss and the land to move. Countless mountains collapsed as rivers shifted. A Grand Prime strike was extraordinary. If it were not for the protective formations, the entire Tian Empire would have probably been flattened from the ripples of energy. However, not only did the heavenless demon Exalt strike fail to disperse the hand condensed from demonic aura, but the hand did not even stop at all. It continued to fall from the sky like it was unstoppable. The heavenless demon Exalt happened to be exactly below the hand. As the hand fell, he was actually pushed to the ground as well. Oh no! The hearts of the two other Grand Primes of the Tian Empire sank when they saw this. They immediately flew out, working with the heavenless demon Exalt to face the huge hand. However, even when the three of them worked together, they failed to slow down the hand at all. In the end, with a heavy rumble, the hand forced down the three Grand Primes, shattered the three formations that protected the Tian Empire, and struck the imperial capital as if nothing could stop it. Immediately, great earthquakes overwhelmed the 5 regions of the cloud plane, and the cloud plane that originally hovered still in outer space began to drift from the strike. The palm strike had actually shifted the cloud plane's position in space. The majestic imperial capital of the Tian Empire had already vanished along with the beautifully decorated imperial palace. The entire imperial city was replaced by a bottomless handprint. The many lives moving about in the imperial city and the many experts who stood with the Tian Empire all perished from the palm strike. Only the 3 Grand Primes and 2 weak existences survived the palm strike. The 2 weak existences suffered no harm at all when the hall that trapped them was destroyed. The palm strike had forced the 3 Grand Primes deep underground. They all paled as blood flowed from the corner of their lips. Clearly, they were quite injured. The two unharmed existences were naturally Xiao Jin and Xiao Ling that the Heavenless Demon Exalt had captured. Currently, Xiao Ling and Xiao Jin hovered in the air, wrapped up in a cloud of demonic aura. Below them was not ground but a bottomless chasm the strike created. They were located below ground level. Wrapped up by the demonic aura, Xiao Jin looked around in complete shock. He was left dumbfounded. What happened? Xiao Jin was completely dumbstruck when he looked at the bottomless chasm below him. However, Xiao Ling was not thinking about what had happened at all. She could sense with great precision that an extremely familiar presence that invoked her memories had drifted over. Her eyes immediately reddened as tears poured out uncontrollably. She looked around at the darkness helplessly and sobbed, "Master, Master, where are you? Xiao Ling knows that you're already here. Where are you? Xiao Ling is scared. Don't abandon Xiao Ling." Like a mistreated child, Xiao Ling sobbed loudly. She cried extremely painfully, and there was also a sense of undisguised yearning. "Xiao Ling, don't be scared. Master is coming to take you back. From today onwards, no one will be able to harass you anymore." At this moment, a gentle voice rang out. A black-robed, middle-aged man appeared silently before Xiao Ling. No one knew when he had appeared there. It was like he had been there the entire time, fused with the surrounding demonic aura. No one discovered his traces. However, his gaze towards Xiao Ling was filled with love, like a father looking at his daughter. Along with it was some hidden pain. Xiao Ling cried even more vigorously when she saw the middle-aged man. She immediately threw herself into his bosom and cried loudly. Tears poured out like rain as if she was trying to vent all the hardships and longings she had accumulated across the years. Chapter 2250, Heavenless End. At the same time, all the Grand Primes who were gathered outside the God's Fallen clan stared in the direction of the Tian Empire in shock. They were absolutely frightened. The Great Elder of the Empyrean demon cult is actually so terrifying. He has reduced the imperial capital of the Tian Empire to nothing with just a single strike. That is far too terrifying, just far too terrifying. Even when the Heavenless Demon Exalt worked with the two other Grand Primes, they failed to prevent the destruction of the imperial capital. The Tian Empire is done for. No one can save them after they have offended such a terrifying figure. The Heavenless Demon Exalt had it coming. Of all the people he could provoke, he just had to choose the Empyrean demon cult. The experts who stood at the apex of the plane discussed outside the God's Fallen clan. All of them were particularly delighted about the arrogant Heavenless Demon Exalt's fate. There was also some gladness. They were glad that they did not choose to become enemies with the Empyrean demon cult. Otherwise, they would struggle to imagine the consequences. The Lord of the Heavens Link Peak stood with his arms behind his back. His eyes were extremely deep. He stared in the direction of the central region and said slowly, "The Heavenless Demon Exalt became the most powerful on the cloud plane after reaching the fourth heavenly layer, reaching mid-Grand Prime. It made his confidence swell. He reached the conclusion that he was no weaker than the Great Elder of the Empyrean demon cult from the Great Elder's past battles, but in the end, he still underestimated the Great Elder far too much. The strength of the Great Elder of the Empyrean demon cult has exceeded my imagination. The might of his palm strike is actually enough to shift the position of the cloud plane. Now I'm even doubting whether the Great Elder was using his full strength against the three experts of the God clan back then. What terrifying strength! If I've guessed correctly, he should be the Empyrean demon Lord Commander Yen mentioned," said the white-robed Uncle Ming sternly as stared at the central region from the air above the ruins of the Shi Empire's imperial capital. "The Empyrean demon lord?" Ming Dong asked seriously. He looked at Uncle Ming with some interest. Uncle Ming said sternly, "The Empyrean demon lord is also known as the Great Elder of the Empyrean demon cult. The Great Elder is quite a mysterious figure in the saints' world. He has only shown himself a handful of times and rarely makes contact with experts of the same level. As a result, the Great Elder of the Empyrean demon cult seems especially mysterious in the eyes of many. However, he always took on the title as the Great Elder of the Empyrean demon cult in the saints' world. The title of Empyrean Demon Lord was coined by a few experts of the Saints' world ever since he fought a Hall Elder and 2 great elders of the God clan. As a result, very few people know the actual name of Empyrean Demon Lord. Uncle Ming continued, the Empyrean Demon Lord is an extremely terrifying figure. I once heard from Commander Yen that over 100,000 years ago, he fought against the Great Elder in outer space. Back then, the cultivation of the Great Elder and Commander Yen was similar. They were both 6th Heavenly Layer Grand Primes. Uncle Ming looked at Ming Dong and asked, Ninth Majesty, who do you think emerged victorious from this battle? It's obviously Uncle Yen. I heard from my senior sister that Uncle Yan's cultivation method was personally created by my master, while the battle skills he uses comes from my master as well. Across the entire Saints world, there's probably no one who can match up to Uncle Yen at the same level of cultivation, Ming Dong said rather confidently. He knew extremely well that every single divine general within the heavenly palace of Bisheng was picked through close screening. Every single one of them was an elite of the elites, a prodigy among prodigies. With their outstanding talent as a foundation, coupled with the devoted nurturing of the heavenly palace of Bisheng, these divine generals possess strength great enough to claim supremacy among the same level and challenge those at higher cultivation levels. As God Kings, they would definitely be supreme God Kings who could make it onto the God King's throne. At the primordial realm, they would be able to rival prodigies. And Commander Yen was the best of the best among all the divine generals. He was an amalgamation of powerful cultivation methods, battle skills, and various wondrous secret techniques. As a result, he was so powerful that he did not pale in comparison even when compared to the direct disciples of Grand Exalts. His only disadvantage was that he had no right to learn the authority of the Grand Exalt. How was it possible for someone as impressive as that to lose in a fair battle? However, Uncle Ming shook his head after listening to Ming Dong's rambling of absolute certainty. He sighed deeply. Commander Yen lost that battle. What? Uncle Yen was actually defeated? Ming Dong was taken aback when he heard that. Disbelief filled his face. Yun Xiaoyan, who was familiar with Commander Yen, let her little mouth hang agape as she showed shock. Commander Yen of the heavenly palace of Bisheng was someone akin to a god of war in the Saints' world. He created undefeated legends one after another. He had never encountered an equal at the same level of cultivation, nor did he ever suffer defeat. Even the ancestral emperor of her 1,000 Lotus Empire showed great admiration towards Commander Yen. That's right, Commander Yen lost. I heard this personally from Commander Yen. He completely admitted his loss and even said that if the direct disciples of Grand Exalts encountered the Empyrean Demon Lord, there would only be defeat as long as they did not use the authority of the Grand Exalt. Ninth Majesty, do you understand just how powerful the Empyrean Demon Lord is now? Uncle Ming said sternly. Ming Dong gasped deeply. His gaze towards the demonic cloud in the sky underwent some changes. Only Ming Dong, Yun Xiaoyan, and Uncle Ming could hear the conversation. Under Uncle Ming's interference, the Empress, Xiyu, and the ancestral emperors heard nothing at all. Uncle Ming, let's return to the Tian Yuan clan. This has nothing to do with us anymore, said Ming Dong. Within the bottomless chasm created by the palm strike, the black-robed man held Xiaoling gently. He said softly, Xiaoling, they've abused you. Now, Master will take revenge for you. As he said that, the black-robed man gently clenched his hand, and the injured Heavenless Demon Exalt and the 2 other Grand Primes slowly drifted up under the restraint of pure demonic aura. They arrived before the black-robed man, and Xiaoling immediately became frightened at the sight of the Heavenless Demon Exalt. She hid behind the black-robed man and stuck out her head from behind him. She stared at the Heavenless Demon Exalt viciously as she said fearfully, Master, it's him. It was this baddie. He's so scary. He bullied Xiaoling and even said he would carve Xiaoling to pieces. Sob, as if Xiaoling had recalled the fright she experienced in the dark, scary world when she had been captured by the Heavenless Demon Exalt, she immediately burst into tears again. Carved to pieces. Good, very good. The black-robed man growled as his gaze became piercing. He radiated with killing intent. Who are you? It's impossible for the great elder of the Empyrean demon cult to possess such strength. The Heavenless Demon Exalt struggled as hard as he could under the restraints of the black-robed man. He glared at the black-robed man before him as he called out in regret. Undisguised dread filled the depths of his eyes. The strength of the black-robed man was so great that he felt powerless from the bottom of his heart due to fear. Only then did he suddenly realize just how puny he was with his cultivation as a fourth heavenly layer Grand Prime. "I am the great elder of the Empyrean demon cult," said the black-robed man. Then he opened his hand and the power of slaughter condensed. It formed sharp blades that rapidly revolved around the Heavenless Demon Exalt. Immediately, demonic blood that pulsed with powerful energy fell. The Heavenless Demon Exalt became littered with wounds in a single instance. Flesh and blood tossed about, he was being carved to pieces alive. It seemed like it was exactly because of what the Heavenless Demon Exalt had said to Xiaoling to scare her that the situation would be reversed, and he would be suffering such a fate. "Impossible, impossible," the Heavenless Demon Exalt roared out furiously as he began to struggle as hard as he could. He wanted to break free. He was a mighty fourth heavenly layer Grand Prime, yet he was being cut to pieces while restrained right now. This was something even more difficult to accept than death to the Heavenless Demon Exalt. After all, Grand Primes all had dignity. However, the restraints around him condensed from demonic aura were far more powerful than he had imagined them to be. Even with his strength, he was unable to break free. It was even more obvious whether the two other experts of the Tian Empire could break free or not. They could only watch the Heavenless Demon Exalt that they depended on the most suffer from humiliating torture. Xiaoling, on the other hand, had already covered up her little head, unwilling to see such a bloody scene. "My Empyrean demon chains are not as simple as a strand of pure demonic aura. They have been refined from the essence of the 6 worlds over a lengthy period of time. It's as tough as a high-quality god artifact, so you should stop wasting your efforts," the black-robed man said coldly. The blades under his control moved faster and faster, and in under a minute, the Heavenless Demon Exalt had truly been carved to pieces. His entire body had been reduced to a white skeleton. Even his head was not spared. It was reduced to a skull, only leaving behind a flickering soul. The Great Elder looked at the Empyrean Demon Exalt's soul, and his gaze flickered with a certain light. Sensing his gaze, the Heavenless Demon Exalt seemed to realize something. He immediately shivered as great fear rose up from the bottom of his heart. He said, using his soul in a hurry, "Don't kill me, don't kill me. I will yield to you. I will become a servant of yours and follow your commands." Chapter 2251, I don't need it. You want to yield to me? The black-robed man stared at the Heavenless Demon Exalt's shining soul as he scoffed. "That's right. I'm willing to yield to you, to become your subordinate and serve you wholeheartedly," the Heavenless Demon Exalt said in a hurry. The two other Grand Primes of the Tian Empire both heard his messages clearly. Immediately, the faces of the two Grand Primes darkened. They seemed defeated. The Empyrean Demon Cult. The Empyrean Demon Cult. It's all because of offending the Empyrean Demon Cult that our Tian Empire has been reduced to this. Heavenless, you've doomed our entire Tian Empire. Sigh, if we had known earlier, we would have stopped you with everything we had when you targeted the Empyrean Demon Cult before. The two Grand Primes were filled with regret. However, they also understood that regret could change nothing. The Tian Empire was done for. Basically all of the central and peak powers of the Tian Empire were gathered within the Imperial Palace for orders, but in the end, they were all destroyed by that terrifying palm strike. According to my knowledge, there's no other Grand Prime in the Empyrean Demon Cult aside from you, while I am a Grand Prime that has reached the 4th heavenly layer. If I join, it'll only make the Empyrean Demon Cult even more powerful, the Heavenless Demon Exalt said in a hurry. He was basically willing to do anything because he knew extremely well that his awaiting fate would be worse than death if he did not do this. You're right. Aside from me, there is no other Grand Prime in the Empyrean Demon Cult, the black-robed man said gently, but his gaze towards the Heavenless Demon Exalt remained cold. The Heavenless Demon Exalt became relieved. However, just when he thought the Great Elder had accepted him, the Great Elder's next words condemned him to a hellish fate once again. Too bad, I don't need it. With that, the Heavenless Demon Exalt's head immediately exploded. A hand condensed from demonic aura had directly shattered his skull, grabbing his soul in an extremely brutal manner. No! The Heavenless Demon Exalt shrieked out in a miserable manner, but this only lasted for a few seconds. His soul vanished from the hands of the Great Elder, having been stowed away. Afterwards, the Great Elder of the Empyrean demon cult looked towards the two other Grand Primes of the Tian Empire. The destruction of the Empyrean demon cult and the capture of the girl was all done by Heavenless. It has nothing to do with us, a Grand Prime sighed gently. His eyes were gloomy as he was ashen. The Great Elder said nothing at all. His eyes were cold, emotionless, and merciless. He directly extended a hand and retrieved two shining souls. Having lost their souls, the bodies of the two Grand Primes immediately fell powerlessly. The powerful presences that radiated from their bodies rapidly declined, and in just a while, their presences completely vanished from the surroundings. The Heavenless Demon Exalt has died, the two others in the Tian Empire have died as well, an everlasting empire has been destroyed just like this, with a simple gesture. The peak experts gathered outside the God's Fallen clan sighed emotionally. All of their expressions were extremely mixed. In the past few days, the Tian Empire had pressured them to the point of suffocation, yet the powerful everlasting empire had rapidly declined in such a short amount of time, having been reduced to nothing. This huge development had quite a psychological impact on all of them. Send orders to mobilize everyone immediately and slaughter the remaining forces of the Tian Empire. The Lord of the Heavens Link Peak sent down orders rapidly before looking at the peak experts around him. He said sternly, "Everyone, let's wait here for now and receive the Great Elder of the Empyrean demon cult." All the peak experts gathered there were shocked when they heard that. Someone immediately cried out, "What did you say? The Great Elder of the Empyrean demon cult will be coming here?" At this moment, all of their expressions changed. They only held some dread towards the Great Elder before they had witnessed him fight, but now, they were completely filled with fear and unease. The Lord of the Heavens Link Peak nodded. He looked towards the God's Fallen clan and said, "Please ask Houston to come." The Peak Lord's voice directly rang out in the depths of the God's Fallen clan, in a quiet, little courtyard prepared for the Heavens Link Peak. The white-robed Sacred Feather stood on a roof within the Tian Yuan clan. He stared at the churning demonic clouds in the sky in shock. Whether it was the Tian Yuan clan, the divine kingdom of Ping Tian, or the entire southern region, their skies had all been shrouded by the demonic clouds, making it pitch dark. Lanterns were lit up everywhere in the Tian Yuan clan and the various streets of the provincial city. They used the weak firelight to purge the surrounding darkness, providing some illumination. So powerful. Sacred Feather thought as he was extremely shocked. Sacred Feathered Tiger Emperors should strengthen, slaughter and grow in the blood of enemies, not like what you're doing, cultivating slowly in peace and ease. You'll only become a flower raised in a greenhouse like that. You won't be able to bear any burden. At this moment, a voice rang out from behind Sacred Feather. The sudden voice surprised Sacred Feather. He suddenly looked back and saw that a black-robed man had appeared silently behind him. His black clothes merged with the darkness, making him seem like a part of the surroundings. Sacred Feather immediately staggered backwards. He glanced at the formation around the entire Tian Yuan clan as he cried out, "How did you get in here?" "This formation can stop chaotic primes, but it can't stop me," the black-robed man said indifferently. At this moment, Sacred Feather's eyes adapted to the darkness, and he finally saw the black-robed man's face. It shocked him. Why, you're... Sacred Feather stared straight at the black-robed man with widened eyes as disbelief filled his face. "You've probably guessed my true identity already, and you're right," said the black-robed man. "Then, how should I refer to you?" Sacred Feather calmed down very quickly and said with mixed feelings. "Mo Tianyun is my real name, not something that I made up," said the black-robed man. Afterwards, his gaze suddenly became piercing. He stared at Sacred Feather closely and said sternly, We, the sacred feathered tiger emperors, possess one of the most powerful bloodlines in the world, enough to directly rival the ancestral dragons. However, the power of our bloodline and our limitless potential can only be awakened through trials of life and death, through navigating through mountains of corpses, and the baptism of the blood of our enemies. If you remain within the Tianyuan clan and avoid these battles, it will only be detrimental. In the end, it will only waste the power of your bloodline. Mo Tianyun spoke powerfully, lecturing his junior like an elder. Sacred Feather became ashamed. He said, I know. I'm only staying here to wait for my elder brother to return. Your elder brother? Mo Tianyun was slightly surprised, but his eyes deepened in the next moment. Predictions flashed through his eyes, and in the next moment, he knew who Sacred Feather was talking about. He said, Jian Chen is fine. You don't need to worry about him. You should walk the path you need to go down on. We sacred feathered tiger emperors originally came from the immortals' world. We don't belong in the saints' world. We will kill our way back to the immortals' world one day and take revenge. When that day comes, I hope you can protect yourself at the very least, said Mo Tianyun. As soon as he mentioned revenge, Mo Tianyun struggled to remain completely composed. His emotions fluctuate slightly. Afterwards, he passed a talisman to Sacred Feather and said, this teleportation talisman will take you to a certain place before leading you to a ruined world. The world in question is the ruins of the spirit's world. The environment there is horrible and filled with danger, where the slightest carelessness can result in death. However, fortuitous encounters accompany danger. It will be a good place for you to train. When you are ready, go. Many primordial realm experts have died there, but once you go, I won't provide any assistance to you. It will all be up to you. Do not disgrace the bloodline of the sacred feather tiger emperors. Mo Tianyun vanished silently after leaving the talisman behind. He left just like how he had come, where the formation around the Tianyuan clan seemed completely irrelevant. The peak experts all stood outside the God's Fallen clan silently as they waited. Many of them were nervous. Houston also happened to be among them in his blood-red robes. He stood beside the Peak Lord quietly. At this moment, a black-robed figure who seemed to be a part of the darkness appeared there silently. He stood with his arms behind his back, 100 meters away from the Peak experts. He was Mo Tianyun. His arrival immediately made the Peak experts narrow their eyes. They were extremely stern. You've finally come, the Peak Lord looked at the figure in the darkness and said sternly. Mo Tianyun did not look at the Peak experts gathered there. Instead, he stared at Houston, who stood beside the Peak Lord, as he became emotional. There were even undisguised excitement and eagerness in the depths of his eyes. However, he calmed down very soon. He looked at the white-robed, sagely Peak Lord who stood at the front and said, "Thank you for taking care of him for all these years." The Peak Lord inhaled deeply and said slowly, "I saved him back then for the sake of the Cloud Plain. I do not wish to see all the lives on the Cloud Plain massacred. My matters with the Tian Empire end here. I'll leave the rest up to you." With that, Mo Tianyun no longer said anything more. He waved his hand and demonic aura wrapped around Houston before they both disappeared. Chapter 2252. The Empyrean demon cult retreats. Over a dozen men and women of various ages hovered beyond the cloud plain. All of their gazes were fixed on the demonic cloud that had enveloped the entire cloud plain as undisguised joy and excitement filled their faces. Along with those emotions, there was respect and reverence from the bottom of their hearts. These people were all high-ranking members of the Empyrean demon cult. The remaining 7 elders were all present, radiating with the presences of the primordial realm. Apart from the 7 elders, there were 4 large, burly men. They wore black clothes as they stood there coldly and emotionlessly. The gazes of the 4 men were all sharp and filled with killing intent. They all gave off a heavy presence of blood. Clearly, their presences were far, far more powerful than the 7 elders. Even among the 7 elders, some of them looked at the 4 men in slight dread. This was because the 4 men were the remaining generals of the Empyrean demon cult. Both the elders and generals stood there silently as if they were waiting for something. At this moment, a powerful demonic aura suddenly appeared before them. Enveloped within it was a hazy figure. Greetings to the Great Elder. All the important members of the Empyrean demon cult bowed politely towards the demonic aura. Great Elder, not only has the cloud plane destroyed one of our branches, but even the Grand Elder has been heavily injured. He almost met his end, while War Demon is dead. This grievance is absolutely irreconcilable. Great Elder, please give the orders so that we can soak the cloud plane in blood. Great Elder, please give the orders so that the armies of our cult can soak the cloud plane in blood, the 4 generals all said together. They radiated with killing intent and an intense smell of blood. The 5 generals were like brothers that had been through thick and thin together. Now that one of them was dead, the remaining 4 were naturally filled with resentment. I have already killed the Heavenless Demon Exalt, and the Tian Empire has ceased to exist. The matters of the cloud plane end here, the Great Elder within the demonic aura said firmly as if his words were an imperial edict, a representation of the will of the universe that could not be defied at all. As the Great Elder wishes. The 4 generals replied politely. Before the Great Elder, they could only yield to all his decisions. They dared not object at all. Even when they were extremely reluctant to just let the matter end like this, they dared not say anything else. Great Elder, Huayan, one of the 3 vice leaders of the branch on the cloud plane, has betrayed the Empyrean demon cult. I used a secret technique to discover that Huayan is still alive. Great Elder, please give the order so that we can capture him, a woman in black armor said politely from behind the 7 elders. The woman possessed truly devastating beauty. Her words and actions were all presented with enchanting charm. Not only did the armor on her fail to affect her beauty at all, but it even added a special bearing instead. This woman was the commander of the 7th Army of the branch on the cloud plane, Yashi Lian. The Great Elder thought about it before saying slowly, there will be someone looking for Huayan for revenge. We don't need to pay any attention to him. From today onwards, we will be retreating from the cloud plane. Do not try to interfere with the matters on the cloud plane anymore. Yes, sir. Everyone gathered there answered. Even though they were doubtful about why they had to give up on the cloud plane, none of them dared to ask. Afterwards, the situation on the cloud plane was immediately reversed. The deaths of the peak experts from the Tian Empire had weakened their alliance drastically. Afterwards, the remaining forces of the alliance were also attacked by the various great and peak clans under the lead of the Heavens Link Peak, immediately forcing them into a retreat. Very soon, they lost control over the central region. The remaining forces of the Tian Empire broke out of the encirclement under the lead of 4 Grand Primes, and they retreated to the southern region of the cloud plane. They cast down many formations, preparing to use the southern region as their final line of defense to fend off the attacks from the alliance led by the Heavens Link Peak. Due to the previous battles, the alliance under the Heavens Link Peak had suffered heavy casualties. Under the efforts of the 4 Eternal Empires, the majority of their forces suffered heavy losses, so they clearly no longer possessed the power to deal with the remaining forces of the Tian Empire's alliance anymore even when they wanted to. They were unable to afford an even greater loss, so hunting down the remaining forces became a very slow process. They were unable to bear the consequences of a full-blown war, just like how the alliance of the Tian Empire was unable to bear the consequences of a war to the death. If the few remaining Grand Primes of the Tian Empire's alliance really became desperate, the side of the Heavens Link Peak would have to pay quite a hefty price to kill them. It might even lead to the death of a Grand Prime on their side. None of the Grand Primes that stood on the Heavens Link Peak side was willing to go down with their opponents. As a result, they became locked in a stalemate with the remaining forces of the Tian Empire. The imperial family of the Shi Empire was unable to lighten up either. When the Shi Emperor went to the God's Fallen clan to explain the chaos of the Shi Empire, it did not proceed as smoothly as initially imagined under the interference of the ancestors of the Heaven-cracking sect and Sword sect of 4 poles. Moreover, the ancestral emperor of the Shi Empire, Shi Yanxue, had completely fallen silent. He had completely gone missing. Losing a ninth heavenly layer chaotic prime was a loss so great that it was inestimable to the Shi Empire. And as the God's Fallen clan's stance on the matter remained unknown, the imperial family was in constant danger. There was only a single place that could be considered a peaceful on the cloud plain that was covered with battles, and that place was the Tianyuan clan. The Tianyuan clan was the only organization that did not have to worry about being affected by the complicated circumstances of the upheavals on the cloud plain. Even the divine kingdom of Ping Tian struggled to remain as calm with all the upheaval. The remaining forces of the Tian Empire's alliance have actually fled to the southern region, and they've taken control of the Blood Sun Empire? Ming Dong, who had just returned, also received news of the retreat. It made him frown slightly. Uncle Ming, the formation around the provincial city needs strengthening. I need to declare to the entire southern region that the provincial city is not a place where they can act up and through this formation. As long as they don't infringe on the provincial city, I don't care how much trouble they cause. It has nothing to do with me even if they mess up the entire southern region. But if they come to the provincial city, a vicious gleam of light immediately flashed through Ming Dong's eyes when he reached the end. Uncle Ming nodded and immediately went to complete the arrangements. Before long, Sacred Feather suddenly bid farewell to everyone in the Tianyuan clan before activating the talisman from Mo Tianyun. He left the Tianyuan clan and went to the ruins of the world where the spirit sages came from. What a powerful talisman. Where did he get this from? Uncle Ming sensed the talisman in the instant it was activated, and he immediately became doubtful. Jian Shen had already returned to the Soaring Clouds Peak with Biyao back on the desolate plain. However, the Lord of the Soaring Clouds Peak, Han Xian, had been waiting there for quite some time already. As soon as he saw the two of them return, a glad smile immediately appeared on his rather pale face. Greetings, sir. Greetings, sir. Jian Shen and Biyao both greeted Han Xian. Han Xian's face was filled with undisguised pride. He said, I already know what happened on the sky-gazing peak. Changyang, your performance has taken me by surprise. Currently, my Soaring Clouds Peak only has 3 disciples, and you have the weakest cultivation. I never thought that you would be the one who would make my Soaring Clouds Peak proud. As he said that, Han Xian had already raised his hand slowly. Immediately, pure radiant saint force condensed on his hand, and he said, Changyang, you're injured. Come, let me heal you. With that, Han Xian pressed his hands towards Jian Chen's chest. Jian Chen took a step back in a hurry and said, Thank you for your concern, sir. It's best if I deal with my wounds myself. If I always depend on my teacher in the brutal saint's world, I'll be destined to be useless. Han Xian nodded in appreciation. That's very reasonable. If that's the case, I will be bidding farewell first. Go heal up properly, and once you've done that, come to the mountain top. I have things to ask you, and I'll also pass on some radiant arts of higher grades to you to comprehend. Moreover, I'll personally invoke the laws of the hallowed for you so that you can become a hallowed saint master sooner. I believe you have the potential. Remember, being a hallowed saint master is the path that leads us to becoming an expert. You will always remain as an ant as long as you haven't become a hallowed saint master. After throwing that out there, Han Xian drifted away. Chapter 2253, Resentment. After Han Xian left, Biyao looked at Jian Shen in admiration. Perhaps due to being overly excited, her face was completely red. Junior brother, no, senior brother, I never thought you would actually defeat Wen Sheng. You're far too powerful, far too outstanding. From today onwards, you're my second senior brother. Biyao clung onto Jian Chen's arm and said happily. She failed to notice that as she hugged him, Jian Chen's arm was wedged between her breasts. Senior brother, tell me quickly how you defeated Wen Sheng. You have to teach me so that I can also beat him up the next time I see him. Biyao looked at Jian Chen hopefully with her large, bright eyes. They were filled with eagerness and anticipation. Weren't you outside the ring back then, junior sister? You clearly saw how I defeated Wen Sheng. Jian Chen smiled bitterly as he broke free from Biyao's grasp rather awkwardly. It was also at this moment that Biyao suddenly realized Jian Chen's arm was touching a forbidden region of a woman. It made her face redden slightly, and she immediately let go of Jian Chen's arm. Afterwards, she said in annoyance, "I don't care. You have to teach me. I want to learn your trick of controlling Radiant Saint Force, or I won't let you go." With that, Biyao spread out her hands and blocked Jian Chen's way. It seemed like she would not let Jian Chen leave unless he agreed. Jian Chen felt helpless as he looked at Biyao. He said, all right. I'll do my best to teach you. Junior Biyao, I need to go heal first, so can you let me return? Jian Chen pointed at the bloody clothes he wore before casually glancing at the distance. He looked at a place ridden with bushes and weeds. The first senior brother of the Soaring Clouds Peak, Zhuo Feng, hid there silently under the cover of the vegetation with his presence completely concealed. Looking at how Biyao treated Jian Chen with so much familiarity, his handsome face completely sank while his gaze towards Jian Chen was filled with deep hatred and envy. Bastard. Wen Cheng is useless. How did he lose to the hands of Chang Yang, who only has a one-colored soul core? To think that even I, the mighty first senior brother of the Soaring Clouds Peak with a three-colored soul core had been injured by Wen Cheng, yet Wen Cheng just happened to lose against Chang Yang who has a one-colored soul core. Doesn't that mean I'm nowhere near as great as a Radiant Saint Master with a one-colored soul core? What will the seniors and brothers of the other peaks think of me? Zhuo Feng's anger grew the more he thought about it. His face became terrifyingly sunken. He clenched his fists tightly as his nails had plunged into his skin deeply. The person who had defeated him, Wen Cheng, actually lost to the person who he never took seriously, Chang Yang, under everyone's gazes. It made Zhuo Feng feel like he was a joke. Coupled with how dependent Biyao seemed after Chang Yang's glorious victory, Zhuo Feng felt even more furious. He began to hate Jian Chen as a result. By now, Jian Chen had returned to his dwelling. He tidied up the messy place again before casting down a simple, low-level formation at the entrance. Then he sat down in the center of the dwelling. He did not heal the injury on his chest. He needed no intentional healing at all when dealing with such a small wound thanks to the automatic regeneration of his chaotic body. Not only have my senses greatly increased after my soul fused with the strand of chaotic force, but I can also sense the laws of the world with even greater clarity. Even the Radiant Saint Force I control seems to be rather different. It has become much more powerful. Moreover, my almost perfect usage of Radiant Saint Force doesn't seem to be completely caused by the strength of my soul. I feel like it has something to do with what happened to my soul. Jian Chen recalled every detail of his battle against Wen Cheng as he sank into his thoughts for a very long time. He still had not completely understood how significant the changes were after his soul had fused with a sliver of true chaotic force. He did not know what unique abilities it had brought him or even whether it would leave behind any problems. After the fusion of the twin swords, the sword spirits had fallen into a slumber. He was unable to awaken them no matter what, so Jian Chen could only give up on the thought of asking them about it. 3 days later, Jian Chen emerged from the dwelling. He made his way to the top of the mountain as he basked in bright light. He saw Han Xian, who had spent most of his time in seclusion. Han Xian's face was still rather pale. Clearly, he was quite injured, where he failed to make a complete recovery after several days even with his abilities as a Radiant God King. Chang Yang, I witnessed your entire battle against Wen Chen the other day. Your grasp and usage of Radiant Saint Force has amazed me. Moreover, I can tell your experience in battle is extremely plentiful as well. You must have gone through many dangerous trials before you joined the Radiant Saint Hall. It is my honor to have such an outstanding student like you. Han Xian was extremely amiable. He praised Jian Chen fiercely at the beginning before passing on some radiant arts of an even higher grade to Jian Chen. In the end, Han Xian even went as far as to invoke the laws of the hallowed for Jian Chen personally. He hoped that Jian Chen could become a hallowed saint master sooner. Jian Chen closed his eyes as he began to comprehend Han Xian's laws of the hallowed seriously. Although he had already comprehended the laws of the hallowed, his comprehension of the laws remained at a rudimentary level. On the other hand, Han Xian's comprehension of the laws of the Hallowed had already reached God King. As a result, the laws of the Hallowed invoked by Han Xian would still bring much assistance to Jian Chen. Several hours later, Jian Chen slowly opened his eyes. He saw that Han Xian had already stopped invoking the laws long ago. Currently, he sat before Jian Chen as he looked at him with shining eyes. His eyes were filled with anticipation. "Changyang, how did your comprehension go?" Han Xian asked. "I managed to benefit somewhat." Han Xian nodded in satisfaction. Becoming a hallowed Saint Master is definitely not something that can be accomplished in a single day. "Changyang, cultivate well. I hope you can become a hallowed Saint Master when you have a two-colored soul core." "Sir, what about becoming a hallowed Saint Master with a one-colored soul core?" Jian Chen asked. "Becoming a hallowed Saint Master with a one-colored soul core?" Ha ha ha, Han Xian broke out into laughter. He pointed at Jian Chen and said, "Changyang, what are you thinking? Do you think the laws of the Hallowed are that easy to comprehend? I want you to become a hallowed Saint Master when you have a two-colored soul core because I have extremely high hopes for you. It's best if you don't even think about becoming a hallowed Saint Master with a one-colored soul core." "Is comprehending the laws of the Hallowed with a one-colored soul core really that difficult?" Jian Chen asked. "It's not just difficult. Changyang, do you know when was the last time a prodigy became a hallowed Saint Master when they had a one-colored soul core?" Before Jian Chen could reply, Han Xian answered his own question. "I'll tell you. It was over 1,000,000 years ago. Our Radiant Saint Hall is able to accept many disciples every year, so who knows how many have been accepted over 1,000,000 years. Many prodigies with monstrous talents will appear within them, but there hasn't been a single disciple among them who has managed to comprehend the laws of the Hallowed with a one-colored soul core. Now, do you understand just how difficult it is to become a hallowed Saint Master with a one-colored soul core?" "I understand." Jian Chen clasped his fist towards Han Xian. Han Xian exhaled deeply and looked at Jian Chen with brimming interest. He said sternly, "However, if you really do comprehend the laws of the Hallowed and become a hallowed Saint Master with a one-colored soul core, you'll immediately become the chosen saint. There will be no need for a selection at all. You'll become a figure of great prestige in the Radiant Saint Hall, where the Radiant Saint Hall will nurture you unconditionally for the next millennia. Even if there is a new chosen saint, you'll be able to stand on equal grounds or even surpass them with your potential alone if you become a hallowed Saint Master with a one-colored soul core. The resources you will be able to use will be even greater than what the chosen saint has access to." "Changyang, although becoming a hallowed Saint Master with a one-colored soul core is extremely difficult, do your best to achieve it if you really can succeed." Chapter 2254, Experts Gather. After leaving the mountain top, Jian Chen returned to his dwelling. He closed his eyes and sank into his thoughts there. Aside from Mo Tianyun, no one else knew he had become a hallowed Saint Master with a one-colored soul core. He knew from Han Xian that as long as he exposed his identity as a hallowed Saint Master, the selection of the chosen saint would immediately be annulled, and he would directly become the current chosen saint. After that, he would receive the unconditioned nurturing of the Radiant Saint Hall for the next millennia. Once he became the chosen saint, there would be no difficulty in him entering the Tower of Radiance. He would no longer have to go through all the troubles required for an opportunity to enter the Tower of Radiance. But at the same time, he would become the center of attention if he became the chosen saint. He would be someone that everyone paid attention to and talked about in the Radiant Saint Master. Naturally, many people would investigate him. Although he had Mo Tianyun's mask right now, the mask was only enough to obscure his true identity from most experts. Once he accidentally created a hole in his story, it would be impossible to ensure that observant people would not realize that his identity was fake through these traces. It did not matter too much if his martial soul force was exposed. At most, he would just flee from the Radiant Saint Hall. However, if his other identity was exposed, it would not be as simple as escaping from the Radiant Saint Hall. As a result, Jian Chen became very hesitant about whether he should become the chosen saint of the Radiant Saint Hall. However, Jian Chen's face changed in the next moment. He suddenly looked towards the sky, and his gaze seemed to be able to pierce through the rock above him, allowing him to see the world outside. He could clearly sense the senses of an extremely powerful soul sweep across the territory of the Radiant Saint Hall without any disguise at all. It basically scoured every inch of the land there. In the next moment, a powerful formation rose up, enveloping the entire territory of the Radiant Saint Hall. This was the Radiant Saint Hall's protective formation. It was extremely powerful. The senses of the soul that had swept through the Radiant Saint Hall had activated the formation. Jian Chen's heart sank slightly. He made his way out of his dwelling and looked at the screen of light created by the formation. He fell silent. The screen of light flickered from time to time. Every flicker represented the fact that it had stopped the invasion of the powerful senses of a soul. From how many times it had flickered, it seemed to have stopped over 10 of them. The Radiant Saint Hall will be closing its gates temporarily. All disciples are forbidden from going out during this time without the permission of an elder. At the same time, an ancient voice boomed out like a great bell, resounding through the entire Radiant Saint Hall. Jian Chen looked towards the origins of the voice. He saw that in the distance, a black-robed old man who stood with his arms behind his back in the sacred hall beyond the clouds. He was the one who had called out sternly. An expert with a soul tree. Jian Chen immediately sensed the old man's cultivation, and he discovered that this old man had surpassed the 7-colored soul core and condensed a soul tree. That was equivalent to primordial realm experts among fighters. It looks like the people searching for the Anata Tower have come to the desolate plain, Jian Chen thought. At that moment, he could not help but feel glad about the mask from Mo Tianyun, or his identity would have probably been completely exposed from the senses of the soul earlier. Afterwards, Jian Chen remained in seclusion. He comprehended the radiant arts he had received from Han Xian and also spent a lot of effort in studying the changes to his soul. He did not emerge, maintaining an extremely low profile. The seclusion this time lasted half a month. During that time, everyone's attention shifted away from the defeat of a Radiant Saint Master with a 3-colored soul core to Chang Yang who had a 1-colored soul core because the Radiant Saint Hall was closed off. During that time, Biyao regularly paid visits to Jian Chen's dwelling, pestering Jian Chen to teach her his tricks to using Radiant Saint Force. She constantly called out to him as senior brother. However, Jian Chen did not become annoyed at all. Jian Chen did have a good impression of Biyao. When the 4 people from the Snowfall Peak came to make trouble for him, Biyao was the only person willing to step forward and help him on the Soaring Clouds Peak. At the same time, she was the only person who had truly cared for him. As such, Jian Chen truly accepted her like his younger sister. Senior brother, at this moment, the protective formation outside Jian Chen's dwelling fluctuated and Biyao ran in, huffing and puffing. Jian Chen slowly opened his eyes. He looked at Biyao calmly and asked, "Junior sister, what has happened that has made you so hurried?" "Senior brother, I just returned from the main peak, and I heard an astonishing piece of news from there," Biyao said excitedly. Jian Chen was interested. He asked, "What news?" Biyao took in a breath and said, "Senior brother, you always spend your time in seclusion, so you probably don't know about the huge matter that has happened on the desolate plain. I only just heard the envoys mention it on the main peak. They said that many peak experts have gathered on the desolate plain. The arrival of these peak experts has made all the powerful organizations and clans on the desolate plain close their gates and restrain their clansmen and disciples as if they're about to confront a huge enemy. It's said that these foreign peak experts can easily throw the desolate plain into turmoil. But do you know why they've all come? Senior brother, you probably won't believe it even if I tell you. All these peak experts have come to the desolate plain just to find a god king called Jian Chen." Biyao sat down on the ground in an unwomanly manner as she sighed in amazement. Heavens! I really never thought that so many peak experts would come personally just for a god king. I really do wonder what heinous crimes this god king has committed to offend so many peak experts all at once. Jian Chen remained calm when he heard that. He said, "Junior sister, why are you so certain that this person called Jian Chen has committed heinous crimes? Isn't that obvious? If he didn't commit heinous crimes, why would he have offended so many peak experts at the same time? Biyao said naively. Afterwards, she said seriously, but speaking of which, I really do admire this senior called Jian Chen because he's able to avoid being detected while being hunted down by so many peak experts. That's really impressive. Jian Chen fell silent. A while later, he suddenly stood up and said, Junior sister, I need to go somewhere first. Once I return, I'll teach you how to better control Radiant Saint Force. Chapter 2255, Donglin Yanxue Jian Chen left the soaring clouds peak. Using his Radiant Saint Force, he steadily flew towards the depths of the Radiant Saint Hall. The territory of the Radiant Saint Hall was extremely vast. Whether it was from the east to the west or the south to the north, there were 1,000,000 kilometers. There were thousands of mountains within this tremendous region, with 99 of them as main peaks. Jian Chen directly made his way towards one of the 99 peaks, the Guardian Peak. Very soon, Jian Chen left the boundary of the sky-gazing peak. He stood with his hands behind his back as he moved through the mountains while surrounded by milky white Radiant Saint Force. He would be obscured by the clouds from time to time. Along the way, he encountered many Radiant Saint Masters, and a few of them recognized Jian Chen. This person seems to be Chang Yang from around the sky-gazing peak. Why has he come here? Chang Yang? That one-star genius with a one-colored soul core who defeated a Radiant Saint Master with a three-colored soul core? Yeah. He really does look like Chang Yang. However, Chang Yang is just a one-star genius. I think there's probably another side to the story for a Radiant Saint Master with a one-colored soul core to defeat a Radiant Saint Master with a three-colored soul core. You're right. The rumor is not trustworthy. If Chang Yang was a 9-star genius, it would make more sense. After all, 9-star geniuses have the ability to challenge those at higher cultivation levels. However, Chang Yang is just a 1-star genius. In terms of talent, he is even worse than me. Is it Junior Chang Yang of the sky-gazing peak up ahead? I am Qi Zhang of the battle peak. I wish to spar with Junior Chang Yang. Similar voices rang out constantly. There were many people who publicly stated their identities and wanted to spar with Jian Chen. After all, Jian Chen had perpetuated his fame by defeating Wen Sheng on the sky-gazing peak. Even though his name had not reached the sacred hall and garnered the attention of the elders yet, he was basically someone that everyone outside the sacred hall knew about. Jian Chen ignored the suspicions and challenges from the surroundings. He focused on hurrying along, and he moved faster and faster. Especially when he discovered that a few Radiant Saint Masters were pursuing him, he charged into the clouds and used the Radiant Wings, shaking them off with even greater speed. He had no time to waste on these people right now. Chang Yang is actually cowering in fear. He dares not say anything at all. What does that mean? It means he has a guilty conscience. You can tell from this that Chang Yang's battle on the sky-gazing peak was probably fake. Jian Chen's constant avoidance instead provided greater evidence for the suspicions of the Radiant Saint Masters. Several hours later, Jian Chen finally arrived at this destination, the Myriad Flowers Peak. The Myriad Flowers Peak also happened to be one of the 99 main peaks. Due to being covered in thousands of orchids, a heavy fragrance always lingered on the Myriad Flowers Peak. Jian Chen began to conceal his presence after arriving here. Immediately, he vanished from everyone's view, avoiding the layers of formations on the mountain as he carefully infiltrated his way towards the top. At this moment, two white-robed women strolled down on a small path that winded through the mountains. They conversed as they walked. Among the two, one of them seemed to be middle-aged. She was elegant and graceful and had quite the bearing. She possessed the presence of someone important. She was the Lord of the Myriad Flowers Peak, Donglin Xiushui. The other woman only seemed to be in her 20s. She was like a goddess, with a fair complexion and dark pupils. She gave off a holy presence as if she was inviolable. She was Donglin Yanxue. She was a great beauty as well as one of the 5 candidates for the next chosen saint. Yanxue, the competition for chosen saint is about to begin. Who knows how great of an influence it is to your future, so you have to cultivate seriously in the sacred hall at a crucial time like this. You can't come here often, the Lord of the Myriad Flowers Peak, Donglin Choshue, said sincerely. Donglin Yanxue sighed gently. She said, Auntie, your hopes on me are too great. Out of the 5 candidates, Gongjing Xian and Xian been getting close to late 4-colored soul cores. By the time the day of the selection comes, it's extremely likely for the 2 of them to have reached it. Da and Shida also have mid 4-colored soul cores, while my cultivation is the weakest out of the 5 of us. Even the elders who guided me in the sacred hall do not think I can win against them and become the current chosen saint. As a result, I have no expectations of becoming the chosen saint at all. Donglin Yanshue's voice was filled with helplessness. Don't become downhearted. Isn't there still another 2 years? With your talent, it's not impossible for you to break through once again if you put in the effort. Once you have a mid 4-colored soul core, you'll be standing at the same level as the 4 of them. Only a tiny difference will remain, Donglin Yanxue cheered her on. I can only do my best in these 2 years, Donglin Yanxue said softly. She frowned slightly, clearly feeling pressured. Auntie, I'm rather tired. I'll go back to rest first. All right. Donglin Yanxue returned to the mountain top. She sat on a dark rock within the quiet courtyard her auntie had bestowed upon her as she sank into her thoughts. Everyone wants to become the chosen saint, but it's almost impossible for me to defeat the 4 other 9-star geniuses. Donglin Yanxue was bitter. At the same time, she was unwilling to just give in. Out of the 5 candidates, she was the youngest and also the one who had cultivated for the shortest amount of time, so this competition was very unfair towards her. If she had enough time, she was confident that she could catch up to the 4 others. However, the time she had was just too limited. At this moment, a leaf drifted over the walls of the courtyard. Under the gentle breeze, it landed in Donglin Yanshue's hand in the end, perhaps out of coincidence. The leaf was extremely simple. There were plenty of leaves that had fallen off trees, so Donglin Yanxue did not think too much about it. She wanted to toss it away. But in the next moment, her eyes suddenly narrowed. She stared at the leaf with brimming interest. The veins on the verdant leaf interwove in an unnatural fashion, forming a small line of words. When the moon is full, meet me at Moon's Reflection Lake. I will assist you in becoming the chosen saint. Chapter 2256, The Meeting at Moon's Reflection Lake. Assist me in becoming the chosen saint? Who wrote this? What bold words! Donglin Yanxue frowned slightly when she looked at the tiny line of words formed by the veins of the leaf. This was a very ordinary leaf. Changing the veins on it was not difficult, so Donglin Yanxue was unable to determine the strength of the person who had sent this message to her. In the next moment, Donglin Yanxue expanded the senses of her soul in all directions. She wanted to find the person who had sent her this message. But to her disappointment, she found nothing even when she pushed the senses of her soul to the limit. Since this person is confident about assisting me to become the chosen saint, it must mean that they are extraordinary. But what I find strange is the fact that they haven't come to find me directly and told me face to face. Instead, he told me to go to the Moon's Reflection Lake through a method like this. Donglin Yanxue stared at the leaf and thought about it calmly. She gradually became suspicious, or maybe it's a scheme. They want to lure me to the Moon's Reflection Lake and do something to me? A sliver of coldness flashed through Donglin Yanshue's eyes when she thought of that. Although she was a woman, she was definitely not powerless. But in the next moment, Donglin Yanxue shook her head. She was a 9-star genius of the Radiant Saint Hall and one of the 5 candidates for becoming the chosen saint. Was there anyone who dared to lay their hands on her within the Radiant Saint Hall? The night of the full moon. That's tonight. The Moon's Reflection Lake. Let's go see this mysterious person and hope that they don't disappoint me, Donglin Yanxue murmured gently. The position of chosen saint was irresistible to her. Even if there was only a shred of a chance for her to become the chosen saint, she would never give up on it. Night descended, and the moon rose up in the sky. There was a huge lake surrounded by 8 mountains 10,000 kilometers away from the Myriad Flowers Peak. Under the radiant moon in the sky, the huge lake immediately became illuminated. As far as the eye could see, the entire surface of the lake seemed to be covered by a thick layer of moonlight. It was a landscape of otherworldly beauty. This lake was known as the Moon's Reflection Lake, and it was one of the rather renowned places within the Radiant Saint Hall. At this moment, Jianshen sat calmly on a huge, dark rock on the shore in white robes that represented his identity as a Radiant Saint Master. He raised his head slightly, falling into a daze as he stared at the huge moon in the sky. So many years have passed already. I wonder how Fairy Hao Yu is doing. Her enemy, Nan Patian, has the Flame Reverend Grand Prime behind him. That's a supreme expert who moved against the Inata Grand Prime, one of the 7 grand exalts of the Saints' world. I hope that Fairy Hao Yu doesn't do anything reckless. Jianshen could not help but think of Fairy Hao Yu, who he had parted with many years ago, as he looked at the bright moon. He became filled with worry. At this moment, a gentle ball of white light shot through the night sky and descended by the lake slowly. Afterwards, the white light dispersed and revealed a sacred beauty in a white dress. She was Donglin Yanxue. Donglin Yanxue was in her pure white clothes, and her feet did not touch the ground. She hovered an inch above the ground as she looked around before seeing Jianshen, who was several kilometers away. At this moment, Jianshen also looked away from the full moon and directed his gaze towards Donglin Yanxue. He brought his 2 fingers together, and a leaf that fell immediately landed between them. He waved it at Donglin Yanxue, who was several kilometers away. Donglin Yanshue's eyes narrowed. She could not help but study Jianshen properly before making her way over slowly. She basically approached Jianshen by flying along the ground. In the end, she drifted onto the rock that Jianshen sat on. She stood a few meters away from Jianshen. I originally thought that the person who told me to come here would be a Radiant God King at the very least, or even an elder, or maybe an expert that had been sent in from those large clans and organizations. I never thought that it would be a Radiant Saint Master with a one-colored soul core. Donglin Yanxue stared at Jianshen closely as undisguised disappointment filled her eyes. Jianshen smiled indifferently. My cultivation doesn't matter because it's not important. What is important is that you understand that I can give you something even those elders or organizations can't give. I know you don't believe me. I also know there are many people richer than me, with more cultivation resources than me. However, can these people ensure you emerge victorious in the end? Donglin Yanxue was interested. A strange light flickered in her dark eyes as she stared at Jianshen in interest. She asked, I really do want to know just what a Radiant Saint Master with a one-colored soul core is relying on to be so confident. Jianshen smiled mysteriously. With a flip of his hand, a pure soul immediately appeared. The pure soul immediately gave off a pure and turbulent presence when it appeared, attracting both Jianshen's and Donglin Yanshue's attention. Just a single breath of the presence gave them the impression that their souls were rapidly strengthening. A pure soul. How did you get your hands on something like this? Donglin Yanxue cried out. She was unable to remain composed any longer before the pure soul. Shock and disbelief pervaded her beautiful face. Jianshen stowed the pure soul away and smiled. Do you believe that I have the ability now? Donglin Yanxue sucked in a deep breath and calmed herself down slowly. She looked at Jianshen with extremely mixed feelings as she said, Where did you get this pure soul from? Pure souls were extremely precious. Even with Donglin Yanshue's status in the Radiant Saint Hall, she had only managed to learn about them through records and from the elders. She did not even have the right to see one in person. However, Donglin Yanxue completely understood the usage of pure souls. Not only did it have great effects on fighters, but it was also a supreme treasure to Radiant Saint Masters. It was so precious that it was something rare even in the Radiant Saint Hall. Many elders did not even possess them. However, if she gained possession of this pure soul, her chances of becoming the chosen saint would greatly increase. Tell me, what do you want in exchange for the pure soul? Donglin Yanxue held back her excitement. Jianshen stood up on the rock and said, every single chosen saint can personally select 9 people as their protectors. I want to be one of them. Of course, you know about the situation with my level of cultivation. Donglin Yanxue's gaze immediately became strange when heard that. She said, your final objective in going as far as to give me a pure soul so that I can become the chosen saint is only so that you can become one of my 9 retainers? Donglin Yanxue's gaze towards Jian Chen became extremely strange. She slowly took a step back and stared at Jian Chen cautiously. She said rather coldly, what are your intentions? Let me just put it out there first. If you want to approach me like this and make me like you better give up on it. Jian Chen was extremely dumbfounded by that. At that moment, he only felt a headache. He was completely speechless. Chapter 2257, Wondrous Usage of the Soul, You've Misunderstood. I have no interest in you, much less any presumptuous thoughts like that. I only want the position so that I can enter the Tower of Radiance, Jian Chen explained with a bitter smile. Some of the cautiousness and contempt in Donglin Yanxue's eyes vanished. She asked, there's something that I don't understand. Out of the 5 candidates, why have you chosen me, instead of Gongjing Xian or Xian Bin, who are more likely to become the chosen saint? It's for a very simple reason. You're the weakest out of the 5 of them, so you should be the one who is the least likely to become the chosen saint. If I can assist you so that you become the chosen saint unexpectedly, you will have more gratitude towards me, and my trip into the Tower of Radiance will be even smoother. Of course, that's only one of the reasons. The main reason is that I've heard about the 5 of you from my teacher. I know some of your past. Although my knowledge is incomplete, I do understand the 5 of you roughly. The feeling you give me is that you're more reliable one compared to the 4 others, said Jian Chen. Do you really just want to enter the Tower of Radiance, and there are no other reasons? Donglin Yanxue looked at Jian Chen closely. Definitely. Very well then. I'll promise you. However, there are only 2 years until the selection, and Xian Bin and Gongjing Xian have both made it to the peak of the mid-4-colored soul core. They will break through at any time. If I want to defeat them, I need to reach late 4-colored soul core. Even though a pure soul is extremely precious and very effective, it's extremely difficult for me to break through the 2 realms in such a short amount of time, said Donglin Yanxue. Jian Chen thought about it and said, you don't need to worry. Aside from the pure soul, I'll give you 1,000-leaf lotus. Anyway, since I've chosen you, I will assist you with my greatest ability when you contend for the position of chosen saint. Donglin Yanxue's eyes immediately lit up when she heard him mention the 1,000-leaf lotus. She said, the Lord of the Sky-Gazing Peak happens to have 1,000-leaf lotus. Gongjing Xian and Xian Bin have visited him time and time again in hopes of getting the 1,000-leaf lotus. But in the end, the Peak Lord bestowed the 1,000-leaf lotus to a radiant saint master with a 1-colored soul core. Donglin Yanxue looked at Jian Chen in a strange light and said, you should be Chang Yang, the person who defeated a 3-colored soul core radiant saint master with a 1-colored soul core. Jian Chen nodded in confirmation. Then he stowed the pure soul and 1,000-leaf lotus into a separate space ring and passed it to Donglin Yanxue. He said, if you have any other needs or difficulties during this time, you can find me. As long as I can help you, I will do everything I can. Jian Chen ignored the prices he had to pay for Donglin Yanxue to become the chosen saint so that he could enter the Tower of Radiance. The desolate plain was already filled with experts. Even with Mo Tianyan's mask that prevented most of them from seeing through him, every single one of them was capable of many different methods. As a result, he needed to enter the Tower of Radiance as soon as possible to get his cultivation method so that he could leave the desolate plain. After passing on the items, Jian Chen left and returned to the Soaring Clouds plain. Donglin Yanxue remained on the rock. She held the space ring as she watched Jian Chen leave. The light in her eyes flickered as she wondered, what is Chang Yang's background to be able to casually take out a pure soul that even the elders can't get their hands on? Or does he have no idea about the true usage of pure souls? In the next few days, Han Xian remained in seclusion to heal, so he did not summon the 3 disciples every morning. As a result, Jian Chen's life was extremely peaceful. He remained in his dwelling and rarely went out, cultivating daily. His junior sister, Biyao, had become a frequent guest of his. She basically went to Jian Chen's dwelling daily and would stay there for the whole day. She would go there in the morning and leave reluctantly after the sun had set. Naturally, Biyao went there for Jian Chen to teach her about the usage of Radiant Saint Force. Towards his junior sister, Jian Chen naturally did not hold back at all. He passed on all his understanding and method of usage regarding Radiant Saint Force to Biyao in great detail. He truly hoped that Biyao could become stronger. However, the end result was not favorable. No matter how Jian Chen demonstrated and explained, Biyao failed to grasp any of his almost perfect control and usage of Radiant Saint Force. Sigh. Why is it so difficult? I've tried countless times, and it still doesn't work. Senior brother, can you explain to me how you achieve it so easily? Is there some other secret technique? Failing once again, Biyao gave up in dejection. Perhaps it has something to do with talent, said Jian Chen. Now, he was certain that his almost perfect control over Radiant Saint Force was not just because of how powerful his soul was. The strand of true chaotic force that had fused with his soul was the most important aspect. It was because of this chaotic force that his soul underwent some kind of transformation, making him possess a closer affinity towards Radiant Saint Force and various laws than any ordinary person. Junior sister, I better explain the laws of the Hallowed to you. I just happened to gain some new comprehension of the laws of the Hallowed when teacher invoked it for me. I hope it can help you, said Jian Chen before immediately explaining what he saw when he was comprehending the laws of the Hallowed and his understanding of the laws. The laws of the Hallowed was one of the 3,000 ways. It was a law of the world and extremely profound. It could not be explained clearly at all. The only way to grasp it was through personal comprehension. Jian Chen did not expect Biyao to comprehend the laws of the Hallowed in such a short amount of time. He only hoped that he could help Biyao gain an even clearer understanding of the laws of the Hallowed so that she could avoid some winding bends in the future. However, when Jian Chen explained his understanding of the laws of the Hallowed, he seemed to feel his soul gradually become flexible and unpredictable. The omnipresent laws of the Hallowed seemed to fuse with him, changing as he wished. At this moment, Jian Chen was thinking of building a foundation for Biyao to the best of his ability so as to pave a clear path for when she became a Hallowed Saint Master in the future. In the end, he clearly felt the omnipresent laws of the Hallowed begin to break down slowly, presenting itself in the simplest form. It was exactly the same as when Han Xian personally invoked the laws of the Hallowed for Jian Chen, presenting the profound laws in the clearest fashion possible. This method had the same effect as an imprint to pass on laws. The only difference was that Han Xian needed to control his laws of the Hallowed to change slowly when he invoked them, while Jian Chen had completely achieved this through his will. According to what he wanted, the surrounding laws of the Hallowed automatically broke down, making it much simpler. Chapter 2258, Zhuo Feng's anger. If there was a Hallowed Saint Master in Jian Chen's dwelling, they would discover in surprise that the laws of the Hallowed had actually become a lot simpler all of a sudden. Originally, Biyao did not pay too much attention to Jian Chen's explanation of the laws of the Hallowed. After all, Jian Chen only had a one-colored soul core, so how was it possible for his comprehension of the laws of the Hallowed to surpass their first senior brother, Zhuo Feng? But very soon, she discovered that Jian Chen's voice seemed to boom out and resound in her head like a great bell. It made her mind shudder, causing her blurry understanding of the laws of the Hallowed to clear up gradually. Biyao seemed to grasp something. She could not help but close her eyes and sink into a deeper state of comprehension. At the same time, Jian Chen was secretly amazed. He had never thought that his soul would have an ability like this after it had fused with the strand of true chaotic force. At that moment, he felt like he was a monarch, able to command the laws of the world and make the laws of the Hallowed change as he wished. At that moment, Jian Chen felt like his relationship with the laws of the Hallowed was like a lord to his subject. However, Jian Chen had only become a Hallowed Saint Master recently, so his comprehension of the laws of the Hallowed remained at a rudimentary level. As a result, his control over the laws of the hallowed remained at the same rudimentary level. At the same time, Zhuo Feng carefully hid in an obscure bush outside of Jian Chen's dwelling with his presence concealed. He stared at Jian Chen's dwelling from afar. Junior sister has been getting closer and closer to Changyang these days. Not only does she go to his dwelling daily, but she even stays there for the whole day, and when she leaves, she's reluctant. Has their relationship really reached the point where they stick to each other like glue? Zhuo Feng thought with a sunken face and gritted teeth. He had always liked Biyao secretly. Now that he saw Biyao and Changyang's relationship had developed like this, he felt utterly furious. He had even lost his rationality several times. Zhuo Feng looked at the sky. Darkness had almost completely devoured the sky and gradually descended over the endless mountains in the surroundings as well. A huge moon rose up in the sky slowly. It's already so late. Why hasn't junior sister come out yet? God damn it, what are they doing at such a late time? Zhuo Feng grew more and more flustered. His calmness was gradually devoured by the night as well. In the end, he could not resist anymore. He walked out of the bush furiously and directly destroyed the protective formation outside Jian Chen's dwelling. Jian Chen had been wholeheartedly explaining the laws of the hallowed to Biyao with all his concentration, but at this moment, a boom suddenly rang out. The formation outside immediately shattered, and the white-robed Zhuo Feng strode in from outside with a radiant sword in his hand. His face was sunken. The sudden occurrence made Jian Chen stop. As a result, the laws of the hallowed that permeated the dwelling immediately returned to their previous state, becoming profound once more. Biyao, who had been comprehending, was alarmed by the sudden boom as well. She was confused at first, but when she saw Zhuo Feng stride over with a radiant sword in his hand, she immediately understood everything. Immediately, anger sprang up from the bottom of Biyao's heart. She suddenly stood up and pointed at Zhuo Feng. For the first time, she said loudly and furiously, "First Senior, what are you doing? I clearly was about to comprehend the laws of the hallowed, but you've ruined all my efforts with the disturbance you've caused." Biyao was extremely irritated. She was furious. If she continued like that, it was extremely likely for her to break through and become a hallowed Saint Master. There were not many hallowed Saint Masters with two-colored soul cores in the Radiant Saint Hall. Every single one of them was a prodigy among prodigies. Biyao became extremely furious when she saw Zhuo Feng suddenly get in her way when she was just about to gain such a great honor. She was unable to remain calm no matter what. Zhuo Feng sucked in a deep breath and forcefully calmed himself down as he stared at the angered Biyao. He said coldly and emotionlessly, "I just received news that the disciples of the Snowfall Peak have snuck into Second Junior's dwelling in an attempt to lay their hands on Second Junior. I was worried about Second Junior's safety, which is why I rushed over in a hurry." Zhuo Feng waved the radiant sword in his hand and said, "Look, I even condensed the radiant sword beforehand. I was ready to fight the people who snuck in here." Zhuo Feng was indeed prepared for a fight, but it was not against the disciples of the Snowfall Peak who had snuck in here. It was against Jian Chen. Once he discovered that Jian Chen held ill intentions towards Biyao, he would attack Jian Chen without any hesitation at all. Unfortunately, what he imagined did not happen. Moreover, it seemed like Biyao really was cultivating, so Zhuo Feng had no reason to attack Jian Chen. Although Jian Chen had defeated Wen Cheng, Zhuo Feng refused to believe it. He thought it was an exaggerated rumor at most. After all, Jian Chen only had a one-colored soul core. "Junior sister, it's late. You should return first. I'll keep passing on my experiences to you tomorrow. Comprehending the laws of the hallowed isn't something you can do in a day. Today was just a good start for you. If you can keep going, I'm sure you'll succeed before long." Jian Chen also comforted Biyao in a timely manner. Biyao finally calmed down slightly from Jian Chen's words. She glanced at the sky and discovered that it was pitch black outside already. She bid farewell to Jian Chen and left. After Biyao had left, the radiant sword in Zhuo Feng's hand gradually dispersed. He looked at Jian Chen and said threateningly, "Changyang, you better keep your distance from junior sister. There's me for passing on the laws of the hallowed to you. It's not up to you, a mere radiant saint master with a one-colored soul core, to give fake guidance to junior sister. With that, Zhuo swung his sleeve as he turned around and left directly. Jian Shen stood in the dwelling and looked at the simple formation that Zhuo had destroyed. He mumbled softly, I never thought that this Zhuo would have murderous intent towards me. Jian Shen shook his head gently and made his way out of the dwelling. He cast down the formation again. He never took Zhuo seriously. After doing all that, Jian Shen sat down in the dwelling again and thought back to what happened when he was passing on laws to Biyao. Since I can control the laws of the hallowed to break it down into a simpler form and present it in the clearest fashion possible, doesn't that mean I can use the same method to control the laws of the sword and the laws of destruction? At that moment, Jian Shen felt an urge to try it with the laws of the sword and the laws of destruction. If his guesses were correct, it basically meant that he could allow fighters who had comprehended the laws of the sword and the laws of destruction to comprehend their corresponding laws in the easiest manner possible. Jian Shen became elated at that thought. If his guesses were true, he would be able to make people weaker than him break through in the easiest way without wasting any heavenly resources at all. He could raise a great group of experts in the shortest amount of time possible. Unfortunately, this is the Radiant Saint Hall. Once I use the laws of destruction and the laws of the sword here, I can't be certain that I won't be discovered. As a result, I can't attempt it with any other laws besides the laws of the hallowed here. Chapter 2259, Guilty with Wealth. The space within the Radiant Saint Hall that stood above the clouds was extremely large. It was like a miniature world. At this moment, a heavy stone door opened within the Radiant Saint Hall. A young man in white robes slowly made his way out with his hands behind his back. Young Master Xian, you've emerged. When the two guards in violet robes saw the young man, they immediately went up to receive him warmly. Yeah, the young man referred to as young Master Xian nodded. Undisguised arrogance filled his face. He was one of the 5 candidates to become chosen saint, Gongjing Xian. Gongjing Xian, you've emerged so soon. How has your comprehension of the spirit elation technique gone? A voice rang out. A ruddy old man appeared before Gongjing Xian silently. 2 white-robed radiant saint masters appeared at basically the same time after the old man. As if they had teleported, they appeared silently from far away. One of them was a middle-aged man with a determined expression, while the other was an old woman who seemed to be in her 70s. Disciple Gongjing Xian greets Teacher Ma, Teacher Chen, and Teacher Mao. Gongjing Xian immediately began to show respect with the appearance of the 3 of them. This was because they had all surpassed the 7-colored soul core and condensed soul trees. Experts like that held the position of elder in the Radiant Saint Hall. They possessed great statuses. Every single 9-star genius within the Radiant Saint Hall would receive the personal guidance of elders. And right now, it just happened to be when the new chosen saint would be decided from the 5 9-star geniuses. As a result, the 5 candidates received special treatment, where they would have the guidance of at least a single elder at all times. The people who guided Gongjing Xian happened to be the 3 elders. Teachers, I've already gained a rudimentary comprehension of the spirit elation technique, said Gongjing Xian. Good. You really haven't disappointed us. Gongjing Xian, the day when the chosen saint is decided is getting closer and closer, so you can't afford to tarry at all now. You must cultivate with all your efforts and try to break through so that you can obtain the position and make us proud, one of the elders said sincerely. Yes. I will do everything I can. I won't disappoint the teachers, Gongjing Xian clasped his fist. Afterwards, the 3 elders left together, leaving Gongjing Xian all by himself at the doorway. Although I've reached the peak of the mid-4-colored soul core, it's just too difficult for me to break through in 2 years. I definitely won't be able to achieve it just by cultivating like normal, murmured Gongjing Xian. A cold light flickered through his eyes as he murmured to himself, it's time for me to get that 1,000-leaf lotus. Once I have it, I'll definitely be able to break through in 2 years. Xian Bin should be emerging from seclusion soon as well. I have to be faster than him. I can't let him get the 1,000-leaf lotus. The next morning, Jian was cultivating within his dwelling on the soaring cloud's peak. But at this moment, his formation began to twist, and a black-robed, middle-aged man directly passed through, entering the dwelling without any obstruction at all. Jian stopped cultivating. He opened his eyes and stared at the uninvited middle-aged man calmly. He asked indifferently, "Who are you? Why have you barged into my dwelling without my permission?" The formation outside of Jian's dwelling was of an extremely low grade, so it suited his status as a radiant saint master with a one-colored soul core. However, the black-robed man had a cultivation equivalent to an over-god, so the formation was naturally useless against him. "You must be Changyang. You sure have managed to stay composed. However, you don't need to know who I am. I've only come to pass on a message for young Master Gongjing Xian. The young master wants you to state a price, and he'll buy the 1,000-leaf lotus from you." The man made his way before Jian calmly and looked at the seated Jian from above. "My 1,000-leaf lotus is not for sale," Jian declined without any hesitation. The man frowned, and his voice became slightly gruff. "The 1,000-leaf lotus is of great use to young Master Gongjing Xian, and the young master also desires the 1,000-leaf lotus. What you're doing will only offend the young master. That's not a clever decision just for a 1,000-leaf lotus. Gongjing Xian needs it, but does that mean I have to sell it to him? Moreover, there are 5 candidates. It's too early to say who's going to become the future chosen saint," said Jian. The man's face sank slightly. Immediately, he snorted coldly, "Changyang, you have no idea what's best for you. Offending young Master Gongjing Xian won't give you any benefit." Jian remained seated on the ground, but he made his face twist in pain. He already knew that from the moment the black-robed man had stepped onto the soaring cloud's peak, the senses of Han Xian's soul had already been following him closely. "I wonder how Han Xian will deal with this matter," thought Jian. However, just when he thought of that, the white-robed Han Xian suddenly appeared before Jian. His face was sunken. He directly grabbed the black-robed man and tossed him out mercilessly. He said, "You've even come to the soaring cloud's peak to harass the disciples of my soaring cloud's peak? Do you really think it's that easy to set foot in my territory?" Han Xian was already a radiant god king, so the black-robed man was unable to resist at all. When he was thrown away by Han Xian, he directly collided with the formation outside Jian's dwelling before falling to the ground in a ruffled shape. "Protector Han," the black-robed man scrambled to his feet. He looked at Han Xian, and his face immediately changed slightly. "Piss off. Without my permission, you are forbidden from setting foot in my territory," Han Xian said coldly. The black-robed man's face became ugly as he left silently. "Sir." At this moment, Jian stood up and clasped his fist towards Han Xian. Han Xian looked back at Jian, and the coldness on his face immediately melted away. It was replaced by concern. "Changyang, has he scared you?" "He hasn't. Fortunately, you made it in time, or who knows what would have happened," Jian said with composure. Han Xian sighed gently from that. Now that the competition for the chosen saint is approaching, the 5 candidates will be doing everything they can to increase their strength. The 1,000-leaf lotus just happens to be able to bring evident effects to their cultivation, so they naturally won't give up on it. Han Xian looked at Jian sternly and said, "According to my understanding of Gongjing Xian, he definitely won't give up on it. He'll definitely come again, and even Xian Bin will probably stick his nose into this matter. It's best if you find a way to get rid of your 1,000-leaf lotus appropriately. You can't offend the 9-star geniuses too much. Their future potential is far greater than mine. Thank you for your concern, sir. I understand what to do." The black-robed man who had been thrown out by Han Xian stood before Gongjing Xian and reported Jian's reply truthfully to Gongjing Xian. Gongjing Xian's face immediately sank from the black-robed man's explanation. He snorted coldly, "This Changyang really has no idea what's best for him. Not only did he defy my orders within the ring, but he even dares to turn me down when I want to exchange with him. If it weren't for the rule that forbids the murders of fellow disciples in the Radiant Saint Hall, I definitely would not let him live. Gongjing Xian looked at the black-robed man and said like he was giving an order, "Go to the Snowfall Peak and tell Wenqing to see me." You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.